Manager, and I'm very honored to give the floor now to Professor Abbiati from the Department of Cultural Heritage, who will chair the conference. Welcome to Professor Abbiati.
Thank you, Tanya. Can you hear me? Yes, everything works?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just to check. Good morning, everybody. And thank you for involving me in this last and final meeting of the ROCHEMP project. The ROCHEMP project has been a very important project for all the participants, for our department of the University of Bologna, and from the colleagues from Armenia, and from all the colleagues that participate from different institutions. And we are now approaching the 2 years of the project, basically, thanks to the extension that was given to us by the Italian Agency for Development and Cooperation, which means that we have been spending the last 2 years working on this project together. These 2 years were not easy years. I mean, we have been all struggling with the COVID pandemic, which was deeply affecting also the ROCHEMP project, preventing many of the change of students and teachers that have been planned at the beginning, but which were not feasible due to the pandemic. And in the last months, another major threat happened to Armenia with the recent war, which was affecting the country and which was also creating problems to all the activities that have been done in Armenia. But these are, I mean, secondary to the big threats caused by war, which is the worst thing that can happen to a country. But despite the pandemic, despite the recent war, the project was going on not smoothly, but effectively, thanks to the efforts done by the scientific coordinator of the project, Mariangela Vandini, thanks to the Tanya that was, taking care of the project in all its stages, and thanks to the colleague from the ROCHEMP Center in Yerevan that have been actively pursuing the goals of the project despite all the difficulties and all the problems. So I'm very glad to be with you all again, and I hope that this is going to be the last meeting of this ROCHEMP project, but we hope that there will be an opportunity to go on, because the ROCHEMP Center just started its activity, and the idea is that this center will last in time and will increase his role in the region, not only in Armenia, in time. And so we hope that this meeting is going to summarize what has been done during these 2 years, but is also going to open a window to the future for the activities of the project. I would like to invite the Deputy Technical Director of the Italian Agency for Development and Cooperation, Leonardo Carminati, to give his presentations here. And I would like to thank the Italian Agency for Development and Cooperation, because it's thanks to this, the grant that the agency has given to the University of Bologna, that the ROCHEMP project could happen, and that all the positive activities that have been done in these 2 years were allowed. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the floor, and good morning, everybody. I'm very glad that I'm here, and I'm here on behalf of my director, Mr. Luca Maessivieri, director of the Italian Agency for Cooperation and Development. And but I'm particularly glad. Let me steal you 30 seconds, because when this project started, I was the director of the agency, and I was very involved in this kind of activity. So I'm very glad that today we have the final conference, and even with the pandemic situation and some tension in the Armenia country, the project is today at this final conference, and we are going to have the final certificate for the scholars that are following this kind of project. Let me thank Mr. Luigi Canetti from the University of Bologna, Arthur Martirosyan, I hope my pronunciation is close to the reality, and Alessandra Scalidini, who is the Deputy Rector for International Relationship of the University of Bologna. Let me say that I'm glad, even because the Italian agency made a contribution of 70% of the expenses of this project, and that we are very glad because you gave us the opportunity to put in reality what is our main aim in the international scenario and debate, because we really believe that cultural heritage and all this expression about the social development, economical development, issuing a message of peace is very important, and this confirmed by our main strategy in terms of 3-year planning document that is approved by our parliament, which is giving to the cultural heritage a special attention, and we are very glad to follow this path, and today is a confirmation that we are in the right way. In the last 4 years, the Italian Agency for Cooperation and Development issued more than 280 projects related to the cultural heritage, and we even promote in a special framework which is called Practitioner Network, which is a network between the main agency for cooperation across Europe, where we sign a declaration which is called Cooperation in Culture for Development Towards a Sustainable Transformation, where there is an highlight to the contribution that culture can make to crisis response policies. For us, is very, very, very important in order to promote the culture as Italian flagship. And I hope that this relationship with Armenia is a win-win relationship, and I hope soon to visit the center. And I hope that in the next year will be sustainable to work on this area and maybe to progress in this particular project. Here we are to express our gratitude to give us the chance to work with such partners, and I hope that we'll be able to sustain the activity in the future. So I wish all the best for the rest of the conference, and I give the floor to our chairman to continue the conference. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Carminati. Thank you very much for your nice words, and especially thank you for the effort that you did at the beginning, because indeed, as you reminded, you were the director of the AICS at that time. It's just thanks to your support that we managed, despite all the troubles, to get through with the project. So thank you. I remember the first meetings we had in Rome a couple of years ago that were really, addressing quite big issues there. Good. So thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to the Deputy Minister from the Ministry of Education and Science, Culture and Sport of the Republic of Armenia, Ara Smalyan, to Mr. Smalyan to give his welcome. Please, I give you the floor, Mr. Smalyan.
Thank you very much. Hարգելի պարոն Դիոնիսի, հարգելի գործընկերներ, հյուրեր, իսրտե ողջունում եմ ROCHEMP Հայաստան մշակութային ժառանգության պահպանման, կառավարման եւ արժեվորման տարածաշրջանային կենտրոնի ստեղծում նախագծի ավարտին նվիրված համաժողովի մասնակիցների եւ կազմակերպիչներին։ Խնդրեմ իմ գործընկերանին գուցե թարգմանի։
Good afternoon, dear officials, dear colleagues. I'm really grateful to meet you here on this concluding meeting, and Mr. Khizmalian is going to deliver his speech in Armenian, and I'll try to summarize for you in English. Mr. Khizmalian says that he is very much grateful to greet Mr. Dionisi, Mr. Karmenati, and all the respectful officials who are present in this important conference. He is welcoming the project of ROCHEMP-ARMENIA that has established the ROCHEMP Center.
Այն որ հայ-իտալական մշակութային եւ պատմական կապերը ունեն դարավոր պատմություն, սա կարծում եմ հայտնի է բոլորիս, սա հայտնի փաստ է, բայց մենք խնդիր ունենք ձևավորելու նաեւ մշակութային ժառանգության, պահպանման եւ վերականգնման պատմություն։ Եվ հայ-իտալական մշակութային ժառանգության կենտրոնի առաքելությունը մենք տեսնում ենք նաեւ այստեղ։
The Armenian-Italian historical relationships are very well known to all of us, but we think that the center has to play an important role, particularly in the preservation of our cultural heritage in partnership with our Italian colleagues.
Հայաստանը ունի ձեռագրերի գիտական պահպանման ու վերականգնման շուրջ 60 տարվա պատմություն։ Սակայն դա չի հանում մեր օրակարգից մասնագետների պատրաստման խնդիրը։ Ես ինքս առիթ եմ ունեցել լինելու Հռոմի գրքային եւ արխիվային ժառանգության վերականգնման եւ պահպանման կենտրոնում, Բոլոնիայի Ֆրատիելիվի ռեստավրացիոն մասնավոր կազմակերպությունում, Վատիկանի եւ Վենետիկի համապատասխան ռեստավրացիոն կենտրոններում, պատիվ եմ ունեցել հյուրընկալելու նրանց ղեկավարներին եւ աշխատակիցներին նաեւ Հայաստանում եւ վստահ եմ, որ իտալացի մեր գործընկերները շատ բան ունեն փոխանցելու մեր մասնագետներին։
Though in Armenia we have a quite rich experience in restoration and conservation of manuscripts, but we really highly appreciate our collaboration in terms of other sorts of cultural heritage protection, and actually the preservation history in Armenia goes back to 60 years. And since I had a chance to be in several Italian centers of manuscript and archives restoration in Rome, Bologna, Vatican, and had an honor to receive here in Yerevan the representatives of these important institutions, I really very much appreciate the collaboration. Please.
Ինձ թվում է կարիք չկա նշելու, որ մենք համընդհանուր պատասխանատվություն ենք կրում մեր հոգևոր ժառանգության հանդեպ, անկախ քաղաքական եւ աշխարհաքաղաքական process-ներից, անկախ մեր դիրքորոշումներից քաղաքական, եւ մենք բոլորս պատասխանատու ենք ֆիզիկական եւ տեղեկատվական անվտանգության համար, լինի դա Ղարաբաղում, Սիրիայում, Սուրբ Ղազար կղզում, թե աշխարհի որևէ այլ վայրում։
I have a belief that regardless the political interests, we all are committed jointly to preserve the cultural heritage, regardless its location in Artsakh, in Europe, in Armenia. We are all here. It's our responsibility to join our efforts for the protection and preservation of cultural heritage.
Եվ այս իմաստով հայ-իտալական մշակութային ժառանգության կենտրոնը մենք դիտարկում ենք իբրև միջազգային համագործակցության շրջանակների ընդլայնման, պետական քաղաքականության մշակման ու իրականացման հարթակ, եւ նպատակ ունենք 2021 թվականին տեսնելու կենտրոնը մեր երկու երկրների միջև մշակութային ժառանգության ոլորտում համատեղ ռազմավարությունների մշակման գործիք, առավել եւս որ արդեն հաջողվել է ստեղծել մասնագիտական համագործակցության, մասնագետների պատրաստման եւ վերապատրաստման լայն հարթակ, նաեւ օրենսդրական դաշտի բարելավման ուղղված այդ քննարկումների հարթակ։
We observe the role of ROCHEMP Center very crucial in terms of professional development in Armenia and in terms of being a collaborative platform between our professionals and in terms of developing the strategical routes for the preservation, management and enhancement of cultural heritage, particularly taking in account the fact that the center has already established a really wide and important network of professionals worldwide.
Ցանկանում եմ իմ խորին շնորհակալությունը հայտնել մեր գործընկերներին եւ բոլոր նրանց, ովքեր իրենց ավանդն ունեն այս ծրագրի իրականացման գործում, Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում Իտալիայի Հանրապետության դեսպանությանը, Իտալիայի զարգացման գործակալությանը, Բոլոնիայի համալսարանին, Հայաստանի ազգային պատկերասրահին եւ ROCHEMP կենտրոնի տնօրինությանը։
I would like to express my gratitude for this important collaboration to the Embassy of Italy in Armenia, to AICS, to the University of Bologna, to the National Gallery of Armenia, and to the team of ROCHEMP Center.
Լիահույս եմ, որ ծրագիրը լինելու է շարունակական, կունենա զարգացման եւ հնարավորություններ եւ մեծապես կնպաստի մշակույթի ոլորտում հայ-իտալական արդյունավետ համագործակցության զարգացմանը, ստեղծելով հնարավորություններ եւ համատեղ ծրագրեր իրագործելու հեռանկարներ։
I really have a deep feeling and hope that the center will continue to play its important role in developing the partnership between Armenia and Italy on the roots of cultural heritage projects and become a cornerstone for the future. Thank you.
Թույլ տվեք շնորհավորել բոլորիս ծրագրի այս փուլի հաջող ավարտի կապակցությամբ եւ ներեցուն խնդրել, որ որոշ ժամանակ անց ես ստիպված եմ լքելու այս քննարկումը այլ կարևոր հանդիպումների պատճառով։ Շնորհակալ եմ։
Let me to congratulate to all of us for the conclusion of this important phase of the project, and I'm sorry to apologize not to be able to stay with you until the end of this important meeting due to other commitments, other meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hasmalian, for your words, and I think that you have perfectly, provided a picture of what was the aim of the project and what are the achievements of the project, which are relevant for Armenia, for the region, but also for Italy and for our institution. So thank you very much, and we all hope that we will be able to go on with this cooperation, hopefully with the support from the Italian government. Now, I would like to give the floor to the Director of the Department of Cultural Heritage, Professor Luigi Canetti. Please, for his welcome, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marco. Good morning, dear friends and colleagues. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to welcome you, even though only virtually, to our Department of Cultural Heritage for the final ROCHEMP conference. You all know the nature and objective of the project, namely the creation of a Center for Enhancement, Management and Protection of Armenian Cultural Heritage, with a special focus on the church architecture. Professor Luigi Tomassini, my predecessor, will talk about the origins of the project, which he embraced enthusiastically together with our Chancellor, Professor Francesco Bertini. You also know about all the hard work in the early stages. Marco and others remember these problems with the management, organization of the various activities making up the project. Then, of course, the COVID-19 emergency forced us to rethink almost everything. above all with regard to training professional working in the field of Armenian cultural heritage, which is one of the strategic aims of ROCHEMP project. However, history has taught us, Armenians and Italians alike, to pull out the best of ourselves when facing difficulties. Armenian cultural heritage can be safeguarded also thanks to the memory of its historical roots and troubled events, which at the same time have renewed interest in its beauty and importance to the whole of humanity. I'm sure that this conference will provide a useful final evaluation of the activities undertaken so far, but will also mark a new beginning, serving as the basis for the future joint work strengthened by collaborative relations that have now become well established and are distinguished by friendship. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Director Canetti, for your words. Yes, as you reminded, it was not easy beginning, and the project was able to start thanks to the support by Mr. Carmenati from AICS, but also from the support by all the leadership of the University of Bologna. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Alessandra Scalidini, Deputy Rector for International Relationship of the University of Bologna. Please, Alessandra.
Thank you, Marco. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of our rector, I would like to welcome the Deputy Minister of Education, Science, Culture and Sport of the Republic of Armenia, Dr. Asmalian, the Deputy Director of the Italian Agency for Development Cooperation, Dr. Carmenati, and Dr. Cabasino, in charge of the Development Cooperation Initiative in the cultural sector at AICS, who has directly supported the ROCHEMP project. Dr. Dionisi from the Italian Embassy in Yerevan, and indeed Professor Abbiati, who is our chairman today, and all the colleagues from the University of Bologna that took part to this important international cooperation project. After almost 2 years from its kickoff, and despite the already mentioned serious and unpredictable difficulties encountered on its way, the ROCHEMP Center for the Preservation of Cultural Heritage achieved a consolidated network of relations and shared experience between Italy and Armenia in the field of preservation of cultural heritage. Personally, I had the honor to be on the top of this project from its very beginning. The project was greeted with favor by the Italian President Mattarella, who reserved words of great praise for the project during his visit to Armenia in July 2018. ROCHEMP had, in fact, an effective cooperation, achieving the main objectives that underpin its establishment. The establishment of the center in Armenia, with the recruitment of Armenian staff and the creation of a highly prestigious venue in the center of Yerevan that was made available by the Armenian Ministry of Culture. And this venue was inaugurated in 2018 at the presence of both Armenian and Italian presidents. The implementation of training activities in the field of preservation and enhancement of cultural heritage with 4 courses delivered by UNIVO, and another one organized in cooperation with the Smithsonian Institute and ICOM Armenian with UNIVO participation. Due to the pandemic, these courses were delivered mainly online with great appreciation among the participant students, not only from Armenia, but also international students. ROCHEMP is in fact a regional center in the broad sense, welcoming students from neighboring countries and beyond. Dissemination activities in the field of cultural heritage, organization of international conference in Yerevan last January, 2 roundtables in Yerevan and several webinars, each attended by over 100 attendees from all over the world. The center also set advisory activities in the field of cultural heritage at project and the regulatory level, with the elaboration of recommendations to improve the quality of the projects. And the Italian team, made up of members of 3 departments at the University of Bologna, Cultural Heritage in Ravenna campus, who has coordinated the project, Architecture and History and Cultures of the Bologna campus, and the Armenian team, the ROCHEMP Center, were able to establish a great partnership cooperating in an effective and concrete way. As already mentioned, the project had to face several constraints due to the pandemic and the conflicts in the area. These events caused serious consequences on the operational part of the program, and particularly reduced several practical training on site, and most of all, interpersonal exchanges who are fundamental for the complete success of a project. However, a contingency plan was made to compensate the lack of experimental part on field by insisting on the design part and the use of instruments necessary to carry out the restoration work. Above all, the project was interrupted at the time when historical and architectural heritage of Armenians following the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has suffered extensive damage and was subject to serious risk, which the entire international community was called upon. I knew that the project was interrupted while the study and design activities were in place for the restoration of the basilica, a monument of extraordinary historical and architectural importance. There is therefore a strong desire on both sides for this experience to continue and be renewed, making up for missed opportunities and building on what has been already done and more. Strong foundation has been laid. The whole machine has been successfully tested in a very difficult time, and now it would be wonderful for everyone to see it fully running. I'm sure that planning for the future will be one of the main objectives of today's event. On behalf of the University of Bologna, I wish you all a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Scalidini, for your nice word, and especially thank you because you provided an overview of what happened with those 2 years of the project. And I think that Mr. Carmenati, Mr. Casmelian, and you really, and Professor Canetti, our director, provided really a great background for these workshops to go on by showing the difficulties, how they were addressed, and how, despite all those difficulties, the project has been successful and is approaching its end with the desire to go on, because this experience of 2 years was a great experience, but 2 years are not enough to develop a real regional project. So we are all hoping that this project will go on. Thank you very much for your really nice words. And now we are entering the more technical part of the workshop. And I would like to remind to everybody that if anybody has questions that he would like to ask to the speech, to the presenters, you could write the question on the chat. And I will, at the end of the presentation, I will give the question to the people that is going to give the presentations, and this to avoid discussion online, which is not easy to handle. And then now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Cabasino from the Italian Agency Development and Cooperation that has been following this this project since the very beginning, and that was supporting the project and his start. Please, you have the floor, Mr. Cabasino.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes,
okay.
very well. Everything works.
Okay. Thanks. Dear colleagues, distinguished professors and authorities, good morning, and thank a lot for the invitation to this very important final conference of the ROCHEMP project. It is a pleasure and interesting for me to hear your speeches and to know directly by the makers how these initiatives was implemented and to know the results and the future perspectives. I was the last expert of the Italian Agency for Cooperation, for Development Cooperation to be charged by this dossier last year, and I followed the project activities working in particular with Professor Mariangela Vandini, and by reading the reports and the website. I was also very happy to take this opportunity to know better the very interesting Armenian cultural heritage. As our Deputy Director explained in his previous speech, our agency is strongly committed in the heritage and cultural activity sector in many countries of the world. And we are careful to follow the approach of international organizations in the sector, in particular the UNESCO's approach. I'm firmly convinced that what has been achieved to date with the ROCHEMP project can be considered as exemplary with regard to various fields of intervention on technical assistance, such as the creation of ROCHEMP Center and its supply of specialized staff, the training activities about cultural heritage, conservation, restoration, and valorization, the collection of Armenian and international normative references, recommendation and suggestion relating to the conservation and protection of cultural heritage. Unfortunately, the project developed in part during the period of terrible COVID-19 pandemic, and many of the activities that should have been carried out in person have been cancelled or replaced by the virtual one, such as this conference today. Despite everything, I believe that a great and effective work has been done. I'm an archaeologist at the beginning of my professional life, and before working in development cooperation, I worked for 30 years in the Ministry of Culture, and in particular on the issues of the economy of culture and the UNESCO conventions. And I would like to share now today with you a remark on an important point of the agency's interventions in this field. The point is the difference between cultural cooperation and development cooperation in the cultural sector. In fact, if in the first case the aspect of working together is privileged, for example, in the matter of historical research, in the second case, the condition must be created to contribute to the economic and social development of the country in which we intervene, investing in cultural services and for their future sustainability. This is the aim of this project, and on which we will have to work also in the future time. In conclusion, let me express my warm congratulations to the entire team of the project ROCHEMP, and let me formulate the wish that the project should be supported also during next years. Our agency is ready to play its role on this target. Thanks a lot for your kind attention, and see you soon. I hope in person very, very soon. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Capasino, and we take very positively your desire to continue the work of the ROCHEMP project in the next years. And this is really a key point, I think, of this workshop. And I'm sure that the COVID pandemic will be over, and there will be the opportunity to meet in person in Rome or in Yerevan to define the next step for the ROCHEMP activities. Thank you. And now I would like to give the floor to Anna Sirignan from the Department of History and Culture of the University of Bologna. Please. Here you are. Please, you have the floor.
Buongiorno, potete sentirmi, vero?
Yes,
Sentite?
Yes.
Thank you, Marco, very much. Please let me welcome just a minute in Armenian our Armenian guests. Սկսելուց առաջ ցանկանում եմ հայերենով ողջունել Հայաստանի Հանրապետության ներկայացուցիչներին եւ ROCHEMP ծրագրի մեր հայ գործընկերներին։ Բարի օր, բարի գալուստ Իտալիա, առայժմ միայն առցանց կերպով, սակայն հուսանք թե շուտով կկարողանանք անցամբ հանդիպել։ Ecco, ho espresso l'augurio che questo saluto virtuale possa tradursi presto in un incontro invece diretto. Dunque, ho preparato un PowerPoint che spero di riuscire a mostrare.
Eccolo.
Ecco, il mio intervento ripercorre molto brevemente la storia antica dei rapporti tra Bologna e il popolo armeno. Bisogna sottolineare come premessa che l'Italia ha sempre rappresentato una meta privilegiata all'interno della vasta rete degli itinerari percorsi dagli armeni nel mondo e che l'Italia è certamente il paese europeo in cui la presenza armena è la più antica ed è la più importante culturalmente. Faccio solo due esempi. È in Italia che è stato stampato il primo libro armeno a stampa, ed è in Italia che si è insediata la congregazione armena mechitarista che dal Settecento in poi ha dato il via a una rinascita fondamentale per il popolo e per la cultura armena. Procedendo solo per salti in questa lunga storia di rapporti, partiamo dal Medioevo. Nel Medioevo, lungo tutta la nostra penisola, si sono installati una cinquantina di insediamenti armeni. Tra questi anche la città di Bologna, come potete vedere. La città di Bologna non è stata uno degli insediamenti più importanti, tuttavia è significativa la presenza armena in Bologna perché si sono ripetute in Armenia quelle caratteristiche degli insediamenti armeni lungo tutta la nostra penisola che hanno appunto caratterizzato questa presenza armena, cioè la presenza di religiosi, di frati basiliani come vengono conosciuti dalle fonti, la presenza quindi di una chiesa, la presenza di una domus o di un ospizio per l'ospitalità dei connazionali, in particolare dei pellegrini, e poi l'esistenza di uno scriptorium. In questa cartina tratta dall'Atlante storico dell'Armenia di Claude Mutafian, noi leggiamo, per quanto riguarda la città di Bologna, due date, 1303 e 1324. Partiamo da qui, quindi, la nostra breve rassegna e vediamo cosa significano queste due date. Il 1303 è la data in cui i frati armeni basiliani cominciano la costruzione di una chiesa a Bologna, fuori Porta San Mamolo, chiesa che verrà poi consacrata una quarantina d'anni dopo. Questo lo attestano vari documenti conservati nell'Archivio di Stato di Bologna. Non possiamo andare troppo nel dettaglio, ma ricordiamo che il 1324 è la data del primo dei tre manoscritti che sono stati copiati a Bologna nel corso del XIV secolo. Gli altri due risalgono al 1368 e al 1381, quindi lungo tutto l'arco del XIV secolo. C'è poi un altro documento importante che viene da Venezia. Una certa Maria Armina fa un lascito testamentario alla Domus Armenorum Bononie. Ecco quindi l'attestazione anche da altre fonti dell'esistenza di una domus, di un ospizio, di una tun, come direbbero gli armeni, a Bologna. Forse è interessante anche per i nostri colleghi armeni leggere direttamente uno dei colofoni di questi tre manoscritti, dove è citata l'Italia e dove è citata la città di Bologna. I colofoni armeni sono molto ricchi, ci danno le date e le coordinate geografiche di questi documenti. Possiamo quindi ritrovare e leggere il nome dell'Italia qui, i Gavaris, i Daliazoz, nella regione degli italiani, i Mairakahakis Vorkoci, Polon, ecco Bologna, qui è scritto il nome di Bologna. e ci sono tante altre informazioni. Per esempio, dopo qualche riga leggiamo Urbano si ut erort Pabin, c'è anche il nome del Papa Urbano VIII. Questo è uno dei 3 manoscritti, quello del 1381 conservato a Parigi, dove appunto leggiamo il nome della città di Bologna. Gli altri 2 manoscritti sono conservati al Matenadaran di Yerevan e tra i 2 bellissimo è il manoscritto del 1368, la cosiddetta Bibbia di Bologna, con delle miniature davvero molto belle. Guardate questa miniatura che riguarda l'Apocalisse e anche quest'altra miniatura della cosiddetta Bibbia di Bologna. È davvero un manoscritto straordinario che nelle sue miniature manifesta anche un influsso dell'arte italiana nell'arte della miniatura armena. Un altro esempio di collaborazione. Non c'è tempo di andare ancora di più nei dettagli, ma arriviamo più velocemente ai nostri tempi e arriviamo all'Università di Bologna. La celebre figura di poliglotta del cardinale Giuseppe Mezzofanti, vissuto tra la fine del Settecento e la prima metà dell'Ottocento, famoso in tutta Europa e docente di lingue orientali e di arabo all'Università di Bologna, all'allora studio bolognese, conosceva l'armeno, studiava l'armeno, aveva una ricca biblioteca di volumi armeni che ora è passata alla Biblioteca Universitaria di Bologna e nel suo ricco epistolario dà tracce di conoscenza dei padri mechitaristi e in particolare intorno a lui si era radunata una cerchia di studenti armeni, ricordiamo 2 nomi, Antonio Chamic e Pasquale Mehub, tutti e 2 di Costantinopoli, che in un periodo in cui l'Università di Bologna aveva pochi studenti stranieri, erano appunto presenti in Bologna e si sono laureati in medicina a pieni voti negli anni 1818 e 1819. Ma il segno più evidente di una presenza armena a Bologna è l'intitolazione del Dipartimento di Chimica a Giacomo Ciamician, illustre armeno triestino che per lunghi anni ha insegnato chimica all'Università di Bologna. Giacomo Ciamician proveniva da una illustre famiglia armena nota nel campo della cultura ed era anche imparentato con i padri mechitaristi di San Lazzaro. Dopo la sua morte nel 1922, l'Ateneo Bolognese ha dedicato a lui, appunto, ha intitolato a lui l'Istituto di Chimica. Venendo ancora più vicino ai nostri giorni, l'Università di Bologna è stata la prima a inaugurare una cattedra di studi armeni. Questo è avvenuto nel 1973, prima ancora che avvenisse a Venezia e successivamente a Pisa. A ricoprire questo ruolo è stata chiamata Gabriella Uluhojan, che per lunghi anni ha insegnato l'armeno a Bologna, che ci ha lasciato nel 2016, ma che ha tenuto l'insegnamento fino al 2004, anno dopo il quale sono subentrata io. Gabriella Uluhojan ha tenuto, con il suo rigore, con la sua preparazione, con la sua dedizione, ha dato il via a una scuola di armenistica riconosciuta internazionalmente e chiamata proprio la Scuola Armenistica di Bologna. Una delle sue più importanti scoperte nel campo degli studi è stata quella della straordinaria mappa armena commissionata dal conte Luigi Ferdinando Marsili nel 1691 a Costantinopoli. È una mappa monumentale conservata alla Biblioteca Universitaria di Bologna, lunga più di 3,5 metri, larga 1,20 metri, in cui sono raccolti i principali monasteri e santuari del mondo armeno. È una mappa che supera i confini del tempo, è una mappa sui generis, è una mappa che rappresenta un unicum non solo nella cartografia armena, ma in generale, vi sono raffigurati e disegnati più di 800 santuari cari al popolo armeno, ma a tutta la cristianità. Qui si vede la cattedrale di Echmiadzin e anche le altre didascalie, il lago di Sevan per esempio, e oltre 800 didascalie dedicate appunto ai luoghi santi dell'Armenia, su richiesta del noto conte Luigi Ferdinando Marsili. È un vero segno della amicizia tra Armenia e Bologna, e così come c'è la Bibbia di Bologna al Matenadaran di Yerevan, ecco qui da noi c'è la mappa del Marsili, la mappa armena del Marsili. Questo ha rappresentato la più grande emozione nella vita di studiosa di Gabriella Uluojan. Gabriella Uluojan si è anche dedicata allo studio degli altri tesori armeni conservati in particolare alla Biblioteca Universitaria di Bologna. Qui vedete due degli splendidi manoscritti miniati conservati nella biblioteca, che ha anche un vasto numero di libri armeni antichi che proprio in questi anni, in questi mesi anzi, stiamo catalogando. Gabriella Uluojan si è anche molto spesa per mantenere le relazioni con la Repubblica d'Armenia. Qui vediamo la sigla della convenzione di scambio tra docenti e ricercatori tra l'Università di Bologna e la Yerevan State University, scambio che è cominciato nel 1988 quando l'Università di Bologna celebrava i suoi seculari a nona. Vediamo il nostro ex rettore Fabio Roversi Monaco impegnato nella firma. Accanto non si vede, ma c'era il rettore armeno Hampar Zumyan, mentre invece è visibile Rafael Matevossian, il vice rettore alle relazioni internazionali della Yerevan State University, che si è molto adoperato per favorire questi rapporti tra l'Università di Bologna e l'Ateneo armeno. Dalla sigla di questa convenzione sono state realizzate una quarantina di scambi sia di studenti sia di docenti bolognesi che di ricercatori e docenti armeni, uno scambio davvero proficuo di conoscenze e di collaborazioni. Oggi l'Università di Bologna ha come principali partner sempre la Yerevan State University, partner storico dunque, ma ha anche delle collaborazioni e degli scambi con il Matenadaran e con l'Istituto degli Studi Orientali dell'Accademia Nazionale delle Scienze della Repubblica d'Armenia. Gli scambi poi si sono ampliati, hanno coinvolto anche gli studenti e adesso abbiamo anche degli scambi Erasmus che contano un notevole gruppo di studenti dall'Armenia. Non c'è tempo di ricordarli tutti, ma sono stati organizzati diversi congressi internazionali con la partecipazione di colleghi armeni. Ricordo soltanto quelli dedicati ai mongoli in Armenia, alla storia immaginario, ai colofoni dei manoscritti armeni e ai 500 anni della nascita della stampa armena in Italia, con un convegno che abbiamo organizzato in collaborazione con il Dipartimento di Filologia Classica e Italianistica alla Biblioteca Universitaria di Bologna. E anche molti sono stati i seminari e le conferenze tenute dagli specialisti e dagli studiosi armeni all'Università di Bologna, che hanno notevolmente ampliato la nostra offerta didattica e hanno incrementato le nostre relazioni scientifiche. Tra le ultime è la giornata di studi che è stata realizzata nel 2018 alla Biblioteca Universitaria di Bologna per volontà del direttore Giacomo Nerozzi, per presentare il restauro della mappa armena del Marsili, che qui potete vedere nella sua interezza, e è stata una giornata che ha visto la partecipazione anche degli studiosi del Matenadaran. Voglio ricordare anche il progetto che abbiamo a Gyumri, la seconda città più importante dell'Armenia, dove ogni anno gli studenti di armeno dell'Università di Bologna vanno a insegnare la lingua italiana. Purtroppo il Covid ha interrotto l'anno scorso questa serie di contatti, ma speriamo di riprenderla presto. Sono ospitati a Gyuri dal console onorario della Repubblica d'Italia. Ultima, una fatica editoriale che vede coinvolti i nostri colleghi armeni del Matenadaran e che è dedicata alle tracce armene nella Biblioteca Universitaria di Bologna e in altre biblioteche d'Italia. È un libro appena uscito che appunto vede raccolti i contributi da parte degli specialisti armeni e degli studiosi dell'Università di Bologna e anche di altre università italiane sul patrimonio armeno conservato in Italia. Ecco, vado a concludere. Il progetto ROCHEMP si inserisce in questa lunga serie di contatti, in questa lunga serie di occasioni di collaborazione tra Bologna e gli armeni, tra l'Università di Bologna e gli armeni. Tutti noi che ci occupiamo da anni di cultura armena a Bologna ci auguriamo fortemente che non solo per il suo passato, ma per quello che ROCHEMP rappresenta oggi e per le sue potenzialità riguardo alla salvaguardia dei monumenti armeni e del patrimonio culturale armeno, soprattutto in questo periodo in cui l'Armenia sta vivendo un momento, e il patrimonio culturale armeno sta vivendo un momento particolarmente delicato. Tutti noi che ci occupiamo, dicevo, a lungo, ci siamo occupati e ci stiamo occupando a lungo del patrimonio culturale armeno, auguriamo fortemente che questa iniziativa, come è stato espresso già nei discorsi d'apertura, possa davvero continuare a produrre i suoi frutti così importanti in questo campo. Grazie. Signora Caluccion.
Thank you, Anna Srinian, for your very interesting presentation and for providing us an overview of the more than 700 years of interaction between the city of Bologna, University of Bologna, and Armenia. It's really a very, very strong historical background that is, explaining and supporting this relationship that has been strengthened in the last couple of years thanks to the ROCHEMP project. And it was a very interesting overview. And thank you, Tanya, for translating some of the contents of the presentation to make it available to the people that doesn't speak Italian. And now I have the pleasure of giving the floor to Professor Tomasini. Professor Tomasini is a colleague that has been attending since the very beginning the trips to Armenia and the trips to Rome to set up all the background that is needed in order to start an international project. He didn't have the pleasure of joining the project later on, unfortunately, but he was always aware of what was going on, and he was always supporting with experience and expertise the activities of the project. And I'm really very, very glad to give you the floor, Professor Tomasini, please.
Grazie. Mi scuso se parlo italiano, ma il mio inglese è veramente pessimo e quindi non vorrei torturarvi con la mia pronuncia. Come ha detto il professor Marco Abbiati, ero direttore di dipartimento nel momento in cui fu avviato il progetto ROCHEMP nel dicembre 2017. Il magnifico rettore dell'Università di Bologna invitò me e Andrea Boeri, cioè il direttore del Dipartimento di Architettura, per studiare la possibilità di realizzare questo progetto che si basava su una precedente esperienza di collaborazione condotta negli anni precedenti dal Politecnico di Milano e indirizzata soprattutto sul tema della conservazione e del restauro delle opere architettoniche in Armenia. Fin dall'inizio, fin da questa prima riunione, risultò chiaro che il nuovo progetto avrebbe dovuto avere una impostazione più ampia e comprendere le tematiche della conservazione, gestione e valorizzazione del patrimonio culturale comprendendo naturalmente quello architettonico, ma non solo. Devo dire che in quell'occasione fu veramente apprezzabile e fondamentale la collaborazione del professor Boeri e del professor Pretelli, a cui fu demandata la responsabilità scientifica comunque della parte del progetto che riguardava le opere architettoniche. In seguito a questa decisione io e il Rettore ci recammo a Roma già nel gennaio del 2018 per incontrare l'allora direttrice di AICS e l'ambasciatrice della Repubblica Armena, già con una prima bozza sommaria elaborata grazie alla collaborazione di molti colleghi del Dipartimento, fra cui Mariangela Vandini, che fin dall'inizio cominciò a svolgere un lavoro di coordinamento del nostro team. Devo dire che la cosa più interessante del progetto in quel momento per noi stava non tanto nel suo contenuto, ma nel fatto che si trattava di un progetto in cui venivano coinvolti non solo i docenti specialisti della materia, ma il Dipartimento in quanto tale. Proprio in quel momento, infatti, il Dipartimento di Beni Culturali stava definendo una sua identità ben precisa, con lo sviluppo di importanti attività di laboratorio e con una forte integrazione interdisciplinare. La scelta del Rettore di affidare a noi il coordinamento del progetto corrispondeva, secondo quanto disse lui stesso, alla volontà di incentivare questo tipo di sviluppo del Dipartimento, che lui trovava molto interessante per l'Ateneo. A sua volta il progetto avrebbe potuto permettere al Dipartimento di sperimentare un tipo di attività facendo e di fare esperienza su un caso di studio di grande interesse scientifico e culturale come quello dell'Armenia. La base di questa considerazione era che il know-how italiano nel campo della conservazione e gestione del patrimonio culturale era notevole e meritava di essere anche diffuso all'estero. Questa fu la prima iniziativa che coinvolse tutto il Dipartimento in quanto tale. Molti docenti avevano già rapporti individuali verso un obiettivo appunto di collaborazione internazionale. Su queste basi si sviluppò una progettazione molto rapida e intensa che già nel febbraio del 2018 portò all'elaborazione di una prima versione del progetto, una prima missione a Yerevan a cui parteciparono Mariangela Vandini, Anna Sirinian, che ha appena parlato, e lo stesso Pretelli ed altri. Il progetto ebbe poi una fase di preparazione tecnica e scientifica piuttosto prolungata, con qualche ritardo, per il fatto che fra l'aprile e il maggio del 2018 il cambiamento di governo in Armenia portò naturalmente alla necessità di rivedere in parte il progetto. Del resto, anche in Italia in marzo c'era stato un rivolgimento politico molto importante. Vorrei comunque sottolineare che questi cambiamenti politici nei due paesi portarono a dei ritardi, ma non influirono affatto sull'interesse e l'apprezzamento del progetto, che continuò a procedere, anzi con addirittura rinnovato impegno. Nel giugno del 18 una seconda nostra missione a Yerevan portò a un secondo elemento che mi fa piacere ricordare, oltre a quello della scelta del Dipartimento di Beni Culturali, cioè al fatto che in quell'occasione la nostra missione, che vedeva la partecipazione, oltre che dei docenti che ho prima ricordato, anche di Marco Abbiati, incontrò in maniera ufficiale 2 volte il Ministro della Cultura, i viceministri, gli ambasciatori e diversi funzionari, e in questi incontri, tutti devo dire resi molto piacevoli dall'ospitalità veramente eccellente degli ospiti armeni, e grazie anche all'opera del nostro ambasciatore Vincenzo del Monaco e alla collaborazione dell'architetto Gonelli, che svolse un'opera molto apprezzabile, si chiarì l'importanza della collaborazione culturale e scientifica fra i 2 paesi, e uno dei risultati più positivi di questo clima fu che la sede individuata per ROCHEMP in un primo momento, che per la verità io e anche l'ambasciatore avevamo comunque giudicata molto soddisfacente, venne poi sostituita dalla sede attuale, che è molto più bella e prestigiosa all'ultimo piano del Palazzo del Museo Nazionale, come sappiamo. Infine, l'ultimo elemento che vorrei ricordare è l'inaugurazione del centro, avvenuta il 31 luglio del 2018 alla presenza del Presidente della Repubblica Italiana e Sergio Mattarella, e del Presidente della Repubblica Armena Armen Sarkisyan. La cerimonia, alla presenza appunto dei presidenti e con i discorsi dei ministri degli esteri e del ministro della cultura armeno, mise in luce le ragioni della collaborazione e fu anche l'occasione per incontrare una serie molto ampia di personalità della cultura armena che erano presenti quel giorno. In quell'occasione i 2 presidenti per la verità non parlarono, lasciando ai loro ministri i discorsi per illustrare le caratteristiche dell'iniziativa, che io a mia volta illustrai dal punto di vista scientifico e tecnico. Mi piace però ricordare le parole che il giorno prima il presidente Mattarella aveva pronunciato in forma ufficiale al momento del suo arrivo in Armenia, affermando che la collaborazione fra i 2 paesi prendeva le mosse in primo luogo sul terreno culturale. Parlando appunto delle relazioni fra i 2 paesi, Mattarella disse testualmente: le nostre relazioni bilaterali trovano nella cultura un'espressione particolarmente avanzata della nostra amicizia e siamo molto contenti del livello di cooperazione raggiunto, favorito dal rapporto millenario che ci lega. La vitalità dei nostri rapporti, in particolare in ambito culturale, archeologico e scientifico, è attestata anche da alcune iniziative significative che sono giunte a maturazione in preparazione di questa visita, come il Centro regionale per la salvaguardia del patrimonio culturale che domani, cito sempre il Presidente, avrò l'onore di inaugurare insieme al Presidente Sarkisyan presso la Galleria Nazionale. Siamo molto lieti di poter condividere attraverso questa iniziativa l'esperienza che l'Italia ha in materia. Speriamo che il centro possa essere un riferimento per valorizzare il patrimonio culturale armeno e quello dell'intera regione. Credo che grazie all'attività di tutti voi che siete presenti qui, quell'auspicio possa avere avuto una realizzazione concreta e molto positiva. E sarò quindi lieto di seguire i lavori di questa conferenza e di aggiornare le mie conoscenze sugli sviluppi di questa esperienza a cui sono molto affezionato. Grazie.
I will translate in Armenian into words.
Okay. Thank you.
Այո, շատ հակիրճ, որովհետև շատ երկար խոսեց, բայց ուրեմն սկսեց ծրագրի իրականացման առաջին քայլերից, երբ նա դեռ դեպարտամենտի ղեկավար էր եւ այդ ժամանակ որոշվեց ուրեմն իրականացնել ծրագիրը եւ այս անգամ մի փոքր այլ ձևաչափով ընդգրկելով ոչ միայն ճարտարապետական մասը, այլ ավելի ընդլայնել շրջանակները եւ ներառել նաեւ ամբողջ ոչ թե այսինքն մշակութային ժառանգության բոլոր բնագավառները շոշափել ուրեմն ծրագրի մեջ։ Պատմում է, որ հանդիպեցին Մարիա Անջելա եւ Պրետելի հետ եւ սկսեցին արդեն ուրեմն մշակել ծրագիրը, ներկայացրեցին ռեկտորին, որը տվեց իր համաձայնությունը եւ շատ կարեւորեց ծրագիրը, քանի որ Իտալիան մեծ know-how ունի տիրապետում է եւ ճիշտ կլինի, որպեսզի այն նաեւ Հայաստանում ունենա իր ներդրումը եւ առաջին անգամ Մարիա Անջելայի եւ Աննա Սիրինյանի հետ նրանք եկան Հայաստան, այդ ժամանակ մի փոքր քաղաքական իրադարձությունների պատճառով ուրեմն հետաձգվեց ծրագրի իրականացումը եւ Հայաստանում եւ Իտալիայում հայտնի իրադարձությունները, սակայն վերջապես ծրագիրը իրականություն դարձավ, այստեղ նշվեց պարոն դեսպան Դել Մոնակոյի եւ ճարտարապետ Գոննելի անունները, ովքեր մեծ ներդրում ունեցան ծրագրի իրականացման մեջ եւ ծրագրի բացման մասին խոսվեց, որ իրականացվեց Արմեն Սարգսյանի եւ Հայաստանի Հանրապետության նախագահ Արմեն Սարգսյանի եւ Իտալիայի Հանրապետության նախագահ Մատարելայի ներկայությամբ նրանք կարևորեցին հայ-իտալական կապերը եւ կարևորեցին նաեւ կենտրոնի ուրեմն գործունեությունը, որը պետք է մեծ ջանքեր կպահանջի դեռ, բայց լիահույս են, որ այն մեծ ներդրում է ունենալու հայկական մշակույթի արձևորման, պահպանման եւ կառավարման գործում։ Շնորհակալություն։
I assume you have finished, Gohar. Thank you very much for the translation and for making
yes, I finished.
That's Professor Tomasini available to the Armenian colleagues, which is very important because this is a bilateral project and we are really hoping to share all the information concerning the activities, but also concerning the background and the feeling that this project gave us during his preparation. As Professor Tomasini said, the warm hospitality of the Armenian country and Armenian people was really one of the very pleasant things that we experienced during our visits to Armenia. And thank you, Professor Tomasini, for providing the overview about how the project originated and how long was the preparation of the project, because it was not something that happened suddenly. It took about a year to develop all the steps and to make all the activities that are needed to start the project. Thank you very much, Professor Tomasini. And now we go more into the activities of the project, and I would like to give the floor to Professor Vandini to provide the extract of the project and of the activities that have been done in the framework of ROCHEMP. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor Abbiati, and thank you for the welcome and the very nice atmosphere that all the speakers who preceded me has created to feel that Italian and Armenian experts and friends, I should say, could collaborate and have results even if we had to tackle very, very important and serious problems. So I'm now sharing my screen to show you my presentation. And I feel particularly, in a sense, homesick in showing you this picture because I took it myself in August 2017 when I was a tourist in Armenia, and from my point of view, where my friendship to Hayastan began and then took us to develop this very interesting project.
Yes. You should share the screen. I mean, we don't see the.
I'm trying. I did try. Sorry.
Yes. Not yet.
I'm using PC, which is not mine, so that's why I'm probably not very clever in using it. Okay, right. So I was saying that I took this picture myself at Lake Sevan a few years ago when I started my friendship and interest towards Armenia, Hayastan. Now, this project, as you now already know, is possible. I would like to use the present tense and not the past tense, because we would like to continue to work with our colleague in Armenia. As you know, these are the project partners, so I'm not going into details because you have already heard about all these friends and colleagues, but it's very important to mention all the other institutions, local institutions in Armenia and institution or university and administration in Yerevan, who contributed to the development of this project. Of course, the Italian embassy in Yerevan, but also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Office for Diaspora, the Urban Development Committee, and from the, let's say, more technical point of view, NUACA, the National University of Architecture and Construction of Armenia, and the Yerevan State Academy of Fine Arts. All these institutions gave contributions, important contributions to the project, putting on the table the questions and collaborating to try to find solutions and answers. So what is ROCHEMP? ROCHEMP started, as was already mentioned quite a long time ago, as an idea of finding a way to coordinate all the subjects about conservation, management, enhancement of Armenian cultural heritage, and also trying to widespread this idea in the region, in the area. So what was planned at the very beginning was to try to find 5 main areas of work. One was, as I said, management, but mostly important was the part of training. If people are not trained, and I don't want to say trained in a sense that somebody has to teach someone else, but something that put together all the knowledge and the competencies in the country and in the exchange between the countries. Then what was missing from our point of view and confirmed by the Armenian colleagues is the lack of standards, which meant the idea of trying to explore criteria for regulations. Then, of course, every office, every center, every body needs to be known and communicated to the outside. So this was the idea born at the very beginning, to try to communicate whatever was done by the center. Not only in a limited, well, with borders in the Armenian region, but also in the region. I want to show you the pictures. You already know. Well, the center was inaugurated by the 2 presidents in July in 2018, and I'm going straight to the actions of the project. In fact,
to achieve those 5 thematic areas results, we decided to divide the project in 6 actions. As you can see, I've put different marks to say that something was done, almost completely done. Something has to last, let's say, forever, a long life activity. So action A was the creation of the center, and we did create the center, giving it a place, a very important and prestigious place, and very, very skillful staff. Action B is the action for the training of Armenian and regional experts. As I said, we had some, let's say, short-term results, but this is an activity we would like to promote also for the future. For action C, we have the definition of criteria and standards for quality of restoration. Let's say regulations and laws to intervene on cultural heritage. Action D, in a way, is connected to action B, regards the definition of criteria for training and making, let's say, modern and also standardized curriculum for restorers, making also a strict connection with what is going on in Europe. Then action E and action F are the actions for the relationship that the center should have with the outside world of cultural heritage, and not only cultural heritage, let's say culture in general. Action E is the action that supplied services for Armenian and the region, like trying to make people to connect and meet, for example, in workshops and conferences, and also try to make a database of the opportunities for the region. Action F is the action about communication and publicity, who has its, well, representative in the website of the center, the social media we developed with the colleagues. All these actions are going to be explained and described in longer and deeper details by the colleague who will follow me in the next presentation. So I don't want to go, of course, deeply in each of them, but just some sort of resume of what you are going to hear afterwards. What I would like to do is, as I already said, is to show you the short term of the achieved outputs, because as I said, we have a highly qualified managerial team working in the center. All of them are present here, and I don't want to take too much time to them for their presentation. But also we had a course we unfortunately had to give online in remote way. We couldn't meet the person who participated to these courses. And then we in Action C have a document with a collection of current regulation. I would like to stress that we limit now these regulations to architectural restoration, which is very, very important, as everybody knows, and Armenian colleagues even more, is a very, very important resource for Armenian cultural heritage. But as I said, in this year, which has been quite longer than a year, but with all the difficulties, we concentrated on architectural heritage. In the same way, but spreading a bit the themes we are talking about, we defined the criteria for training of restorers. I think that everybody knows that restorers are professionals who need very, very multidisciplinary competencies. So it's not just only a manual work, it's every but manual work. So to train restorers, it's very important to make a connection also between universities, academias, to try to develop these professionals in a very complete way. For Action E, as I said, international seminaries and workshops and conferences, and for Action F, for communication, increasing awareness about the activities of the project. We do have ideas of what we can be done in the future about the ROCHEMP Center. Of course, as I said, all the results I showed are the results of a very, very strong and connected team. But I think that for each of them, we could develop a different project. So this is some sort of wish list that we could try to fulfill, especially for what is training is concerned. Of course, the courses we gave made, I think, an important step forward. But of course, things are changing in our world, in cultural heritage especially. And I think that the establishment of a long life training to be offered to local and regional experts is goal that we should take in mind if this project could have a future and further steps. Of course, for Action C, as I said, we limited our action on architectural cultural heritage, but of course we would like to extend it to any type of cultural heritage. And for Action D, I would like to suggest that possibly putting together all the institutions, starting from the ministry who is involved in this project, so the ministry that is also the Ministry of Education, try to make a curriculum development and try to establish a course in university and academies to try to train people that are going to be the future conservation and restorers in the region. I don't want to go again on these, well, let's say some sort of strengthen the international exchange and international awareness. So as I said, I'm not going into details. I only want to conclude my talk by thanking all the staff involved, the experts, the Italian experts that you will hear speaking afterwards. I might need to thank Professor Fallavolita and Professor Vici, who are not in the list of speakers today, but then I have to thank all the speakers. So I'm not going through all the names, but you just read the program. And these are the persons who made this, this project possible. And the local staff who had really a very important role. But I also have to thank, because as I said, this project had quite a long time of plans and projects. I would like to thank people who helped us to make this project possible. From the Armenian part, we started talking about the ministry when it was a standalone ministry. It was the Ministry of Culture with Arav Samuelian, and then Nazeni Garibian, Tigran Galstian, who are the person who helped us in developing the project, and Narine Kachaturian, who was the person who made it, let's say, a solid reality working with us. I would also like to thank Marina Bunatian from Nuaka, because she helps us for any problem with the technical parts. And of course, for the Italian side, this project started with the help of Rita Gonelli from AICS and Gaiane Casnati, the Politecnico of Milan. She will give a talk afterwards, so she can describe her role in the project. And also Anna Rosa Colangelo from the embassy in Yerevan. And of course, the person who gave a very, very important support to the project, His Excellency Vincenzo del Monaco, the former ambassador. So thank you, Shnora Kalotziun, and thank you also to my friends Anna Sirinian and Gaiane Casnati, who gave me the words to say, see you soon in Armenia. I hope I'm saying it right, Arajim. And so see you soon for, we hope, the continuity of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Scalidini, for your very interesting presentation. I mean, as I said, we're entering the more technical part of the project. We have been able to appreciate the huge amount of work that has been done and all the achievements that have been obtained during the project, despite all the difficulties that we have been facing in the last 2 years. And now I give the floor to Ani Avagian to go more in details about the Armenian part of the project. You have the floor, Ani.
Thank you, Professor Abbiati, and I have been really very emotional by listening to all these speeches and nice words, and I totally agree with Mariangela that the atmosphere that is created in this conference, it sort of dissolved the feeling of distance between us. I'm really feeling privileged to be here to talk about the 16 months work that we have implemented together with our Italian colleagues and our team at the Center and the National Gallery of Armenia. I'm sharing my presentation. Can you see it? Is it available to you?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay,
if you can put it on full screen, please.
Yeah, it's here.
Thank you.
Before to start my presentation, I would like to say a few words of gratitude in behalf of the ROCHEMP team. Of course, my colleagues are going to deliver speeches later on, but we cannot stay apart and not to express our thankfulness to the all institutions and individuals who made the ROCHEMP-ARMENIA project to come true and to establish the center where we had the opportunity, the possibility to work together and to create the results that I'm going to mostly focus on during the last few minutes of my presentation. Well, we have created a report.
Annie, could you put on full screen the presentation in presentation mode? Thank you.
Is it on full? Because I see it as on a full screen.
Okay, no, for us it's not, but okay.
Okay. Moment, please. Is it fine now?
No, if you can turn it in presentation mode, because we see all the background on the side.
Okay, just a moment, please.
Yeah,
these technical things are really...
Bottom right, near to 70%. If you go bottom right, near to 70%, you click near.
Yeah, I click. Oh. Does it work?
No. Okay, go on. Sorry, go
on. We have prepared a detailed report that will be soon available on the ROCHEMP website. That includes all the work implemented between the time period 1st of November 2019 and 30th of January 2021. Of course, I have no time to go in details, but I'll try to present, to give a general idea about what we are doing, what we have done, and particularly the impact that ROCHEMP Center's activities had in the field of cultural heritage. So here you see the main activities, because we are very often asked, what are we doing in the center? So these are the main activities conducted in the cultural heritage management and protection and enhancement. We provided professional consultation, also in disaster risk management, material support, research, cooperation, communication, COVID-19 pandemic, relief, professional networking, and so on. You can see here. I will go now to the next. Here I would like to present the ROCHEMP impact in numbers. So during the 16 months, with in close collaboration with our Italian colleagues, we could implement, organize 3 training courses with the participation of 130 participants from almost 10 countries of the world, 2 international conferences with almost 200 participants, again coming from different countries around the world, 5 roundtable discussions with 140 experts in different aspects, topics of cultural heritage, 2 online webinars with 160 participants, 1 publication that I will present more in details a little bit later, 1 guidebook, and 3 books translated. So eventually, at least 1,000 experts were reached out by the ROCHEMP activities. Our activities had also a great engagement despite the COVID pandemic lockdown and the war situation in Armenia. Just to give you an idea, between the time periods of 13th January 2021 and 10th of February, it's less than a month, we had 30,500 people were engaged and reached out our Facebook page. So this is just to give you an idea about the engagement.
Anis, sorry for interrupting you again, but we don't see the slides. We see just the first slide because they're not scrolling down. If you put on presentation mode, we may be, oh, now we see, but if you put on presentation mode, we should be able to see it properly.
Can you see it now?
We can see the slide number 3 now, but we see all the background of the slides, but it's fine. Okay, thank you.
I'm putting on the mode, but I don't know why it doesn't show you, because it shows me in the present. Okay,
one by
I
one,
will scroll down. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry because I made a nice presentation.
Now we see it. Now we see. If you go on the slide and turn it on, we see it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for warning me, Professor. So can you see this slide? Because these are the numbers and I'd love you to really get engaged in this. Okay. Going further, I would like to show you a slide where we also made really a core activity in our work, the visibility and promotion of the activities of the center, and in partnership with the Unibo Frame Lab, who developed for the center the www.rochemp.org, the website on this address. And we have also created the official pages of the center on all proactive social media. So I also would like to invite the all participants to follow us in order to be aware about our activities and what we do. As I've mentioned already, we have implemented a number of collaborative projects, and I'd like to present one of those major projects that we have developed with partnership with My Armenia project of Smithsonian Institution supported by USAID Armenia and ICOM-Armenia. That started from the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in Armenia. So we developed a really long-term project together to support the cultural institutions to relieve the results of the pandemic. So in August, right before the war started, we could manage with the support of our colleagues, of our partners from My Armenia and ICOM-Armenia, to create these posters that you see on the left-hand side of my presentation and to distribute it to almost 100 cultural institutions. So through this poster, we could promote the logo of the center, and it's really well recognized nowadays. Here you see the material support that we have provided to the cultural institutions, 36 institutions in the regions of Armenia, to be able to work remotely and to receive visitors after the reopening, because we put really a lot of effort in supporting the government, the ministry, to reopen the museums in August. Until now, the museums are open in Armenia. I'm going to the next slide. In our activities, we are particularly giving a really great importance to the translation and creation of professional materials. As Mariangela Vandini mentioned in her speech, education for the professionals is a core for the quality of the profession. And in Armenia, we have a lack of professional literature in Armenian language. So in that terms, we have selected in our center a huge list of guidebooks, international textbooks that we are going to translate and distribute within the universities and professional networks in Armenia. So far here we have already 8 publications. Some of them will be published in hard copies, like the one from ECHO, the competencies for access to the conservation restoration profession. And the others are already available on the website of the ROCHEMP Center. Another important another important meeting that was right after the war in 8th of December in the Ministry of Culture with the deputies of Minister of the Education, Science, Culture and Sports of Armenia, who have received the delegation of Undersecretary for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Italy. During this meeting, particularly, we discussed the role of the ROCHEMP Center in the future, and that was really a positive moment to know that after the end of this first phase, we can try to have another further development of this collaboration. This year we started already the activities, and within the COVID-19 pandemic project, we had a very successful week-long series of online trainings and expert talks in partnership with our already mentioned organizations, institutions, where enormous number of participants registered. And what was really more inspiring, that they participated in a very active mode, in a very great dialogue with the experts presented here, shared, and we are now conducting with our colleagues an assessment. We developed a questionnaire where we see that soon the results will be made public, but now I can tell you that the participants were really satisfied, and they even mentioned that they would like to have another this kind of experience exchange activities. And they were coming from 8 countries of the world. What is very much really inspiring our team, that our activities are covering very wide range of geographical territory. And last but not least, I'm really grateful to share with you, to present the proceedings of the ROCHEMP annual conference that took place last year, and we were so happy to be together in Matenadaran with almost 150 participants from many countries in the region, and not only from the region, because we had participants from China, from Italy, and so on. And luckily, we have published in 300 hard copies the proceedings of the conference with 10 distinguished experts' contributions. And soon we will try to deliver the copies to each of you, dear participants in Italy, and also the contributors will receive their copies. The book is called Cultural Heritage, Experiences and Perspectives in International Context. We are really proud of our efforts and results in developing collaboration with the local representations, local institutions and representations of international institutions. Here we have presented a few of them: ICOMOS Armenia, ICOM Armenia, My Armenia project of Smithsonian Institution. But I'd like also to underline our great collaboration with Nuaka University for the professional development curriculum that we are working together. And even after the end of the project, the center is going to develop to reach this curriculum to the end with our colleagues in Nuaka University. And we are very much grateful for this opportunity. I really feel privileged to be surrounded with these beautiful ladies. We have a ladies club of very efficient personalities who are really producing great results in the center, and without whose work and efforts would not be possible to have this kind of results. Out of all of that, Professor Abbiati, if you give me 1 minute, I would really like to use this opportunity to send my gratitude to the all members of ROCHEMP steering committee, scientific committees and coordination groups, colleagues at UNIBO, Ministry of Education, Science and Culture of Armenia, Foreign Affairs Ministry of Armenia, the National Gallery, Nuaka University, and particularly the former ambassador of Italy in Armenia, His Excellency Vincenzo del Monaco, who has been the chair of the steering committee. Lots of love and gratitude to Mariangela Vandini and Tanya Kini, because they were like, I can say, the mothers of the project, and were next to us at each step. And also the former deputy, Mrs. Narine Khachaturian, for her efforts in becoming and in turning this project, this center, into reality. And also the current deputies, because they have taken over the idea and very keenly trying to develop the center. They put their all efforts in providing the sustainability to the center, particularly Mr. Artur Martirosyan and Ara Khazmalian, who talked to us earlier in this morning. Thanks to all of you, because we really feel privileged, and we are very grateful for this opportunity to work with all of you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that my presentation didn't work in a proper way, but I hope my word was reached to the point. So if you will have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to read in the chat, and on the right moment we can talk also. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you very much for your presentation. You provided really a very detailed overview about all the details of the activities that have been done by the center in Ravenna, in activities that are dealing with Armenia, but not only with Armenia. There were international activities. So the center is not is important for Armenia, but it's also important because it's bringing together the world to put an eye and to put a focus on Yerevan and on Armenia, and this is needed, I think, in this time. And I thank you again. And now I would like to give the floor to Tanya Kinney to start the presentations concerning the capacity building activities that have been done during the ROCHEMP project. Please, Tanya, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Tanya Kinney, and now I show you my presentation. Can you see my presentation? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, in this brief speech, I would like to introduce you one of the aim of the ROCHEMP project related to the improvement of competencies and skills of cultural heritage experts in Armenia. According to the original project plan, there were two different actions related to the capacity building activities. Action B, regarding the establishment of a pilot training course dedicated to professionals, operators, researchers, and MA students in cultural heritage field, which will be presented here by Goharo Vakimian and me. And Action D, regarding the drafting of a proposal for the establishment of a specific educational path for conservator restorers in Armenia, which will be presented later by Sara Fiorentino. Action B has been aimed to introduce local and international experts to a different way to approach conservation, enhancement, and management of cultural heritage, fostering collaboration and dialogue between the different areas of expertise of the participants. This project action is based on the premise that multidisciplinary approaches can support the adoption of new tailored solutions in conservation and enhancement of Armenian cultural heritage, potentially representing a new step towards the development of further collaborations and projects. Action B has been based on the development of three different tasks. The training in Italy for 2 local experts for the implementation of the center, the training in Armenia of a selected group of expert employees and researchers in different fields of cultural heritage, and a practical activity on a selected site, monument, or group of objects in which the participant to the pilot training course would have been involved. In particular, the training course entitled ROCHEMP 2020 Training for Cultural Heritage Expert was started in February 2020 in Yerevan with the support of the local partner NUACA. The course, divided into 4 modules and dedicated to historical buildings and monuments, involved 15 professors, researchers, and technical staff units from 4 different departments of the University of Bologna: the Department of Cultural Heritage, the Department of Architecture, the Department of History and Cultures, and the Center of Advanced Studies for Tourism. The 25 admitted participants, mainly from Armenia, but also from Georgia, Egypt, Belgium, and Italy, were selected in international public course published on the official website of the center and the partners. Unfortunately, the emergency due to the COVID-19 disease impacting on international travel forced us to change our original plans. The training in Italy of the 2 experts for the center activity was combined to the training course, and the training course conceived as an intensive experience with on-site exercise on the Heroic Basilica, has been completely translated into remote mode, redefining the method of teaching and practice. The impossibility for the Italian training staff to travel to Armenia led us to transfer 110 hours of frontal lesson in a remote mode for a total of 3 months of lessons. The technical modules originally linked to exercise in the application of specific conservation technique or dedicated to instrument have been adapted to the new need, including video tutorials and MOOCs created for the course and available for the participant on a dedicated platform activated by University of Bologna. The original training on the site was mainly converted in open discussions dedicated to the development of conservation and management plans on the Heroic Basilica and to present international initiatives for Armenian cultural heritage. Furthermore, new topics more linked to communication skills or to understanding the COVID-19 impact on cultural heritage sector in international perspective has been introduced. We are very grateful to our colleague from University of Bologna for completely rethink lessons and content in very short time. But nothing of this would be possible without the great collaboration and support of the staff of the ROCHEMP Center and the resourcefulness and great enthusiasm of our trained experts for having taken part to this new challenge and for having contributed to the success of this training with their active participation. I don't want to take more time to my colleague, so I leave the floor to the next speakers. And well, I thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for your very sharp and clear presentation. You have summarized in a very short time many activities and many achievements. And now I give the floor to Gohar Hovakimian for the continue the presentation concerning the capacity building activities. Please, Gohar.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Prego.
Voglio...
Are you going to share the screen for the presentation? No?
Yes, but...
Yes.
Un attimo. I prepared my presentation in Italian
Okay.
because Italian is more familiar to me. Then I will translate myself.
Okay. Okay, a part is changing, is charging. Yeah. We can see your screen, I think.
Non vedete niente, no?
Vediamo lo schermo bianco con le penne di correzione, non la presentazione.
Cosa sta succedendo? Ho fatto delle prove, ho aperto, non so perché ora non riesco.
Hai condiviso la lavagna invece dello schermo, giusto?
Magari si apre.
Ok. Adesso. Oh, bravissima, perfetto. Okay. Very well, thank you. Now we see your presentation.
Thank you. Allora, il corso che è stato presentato da Tania Chinni è stato realizzato presso l'Università Nazionale dell'Architettura dell'Armenia, NUACA, dove nel 2012 sono stati già realizzati corsi biennali del master del restauro architettonico nell'ambito della collaborazione italo-armena con il supporto dell'AICS. Il corso anche nel formato un po' diverso dal precedente ha avuto un successo e ha raggruppato in un unico gruppo diversi specialisti del campo culturale, architetti, ingegneri, culturologi, archeologi, storici e avevamo anche un economista. I corsi per gli esperti del patrimonio culturale, come avete già visto dalla presentazione di Tania Chini, anche apparentemente distanti fra di loro, erano collegate in quanto affrontavano da prospettive diverse il tema in questione. Il corso era composto dalle lezioni frontali in aula, dallo studio individuale e attività pratiche sul campo. Soprattutto quest'ultimo non si è realizzato a causa delle limitazioni legate alla pandemia. Lo stesso problema è sorto anche per quanto riguardava le lezioni in aula. Ne abbiamo fatte solo 2 settimane con Alessia Zampini. Praticamente tutto il contatto tra i partecipanti e la conoscenza tra di loro si è formata solo in quelli giorni. Come è stato già detto, i corsi si svolgevano presso la NUACA, che ha messo gentilmente a disposizione una bella aula con tutte le comodità. I professori della NUACA hanno espresso un grande interesse al corso e nella persona della professoressa Emma Harutyunyan hanno espresso il desiderio di condividere con i partecipanti del corso i lavori dei loro studenti. Durante la visita di Alessia Zampini sono state discusse le eventuali collaborazioni tra le 2 università e scambi degli studenti che sono stati interrotti dalla pandemia, ma le università sperano di poter continuare la collaborazione e creare questa bella atmosfera italo-armena che avevamo da anni. Ma anche nella situazione della pandemia si è trovata una soluzione, quella digitale, che ha permesso agli studenti di seguire tutto il corso nell'aula virtuale. È vero che questa forma di studio non era quella che era pensata inizialmente, ma ha permesso di ascoltare, perché no, anche seguire tutta una serie di lezioni pratiche di Salvatore Napoli. Vorrei sottolineare il fatto che i partecipanti del corso erano tutte persone molto interessanti, con diverse specializzazioni di diverse età, di diverse nazionalità, con una certa esperienza, e ognuno di loro ha preso qualcosa dal corso, ma nello stesso tempo ha lasciato qualcosa della sua esperienza per gli altri. Ad esempio, il nostro partecipante belga, essendo del campo dell'economia, ha seguito tutto il corso e alla fine si è presentato con una proposta di collaborazione che speriamo realizzare in futuro. Oggi la nostra collega Nanar Kalantarian è l'ex studentessa del Master Biennale italiano e anche partecipante di questo corso. E questi corsi permettono anche di allargare la rete degli esperti creandone un database. Il corso poteva avere un altro esito e altri risultati positivi se non ci fossero il virus e la guerra. Io qui vorrei parlare di un nostro studente che, a parte il suo interessamento e entusiasmo dimostrato verso il corso, anche verso la cultura italiana che conosceva molto bene, faceva delle discussioni con Alessandra Zampini. È partito dai primi giorni in guerra ad Artsakh, in Karabakh, ha avuto delle perdite dolorose, ma ha trovato forze per alzarsi e cercare di andare avanti. Molti giovani operatori del campo della cultura, come il nostro studente, hanno combattuto durante la guerra e ora l'unico desiderio di questi giovani e il motto della loro vita è poter salvare la loro cultura e lavorare nella direzione della sua divulgazione, perché, come sapete, una grande parte del patrimonio abbiamo lasciato nella parte occupata dagli azeri e un'altra parte danneggiata ha bisogno di essere curata. E per questo vorrei sottolineare l'importanza dell'organizzazione di questi corsi come opportunità per gli esperti armeni, soprattutto per i restauratori che ne hanno più bisogno che mai. A causa di varie circostanze noi non siamo riusciti a consegnare il nostro certificato agli studenti che presentiamo ora ufficialmente. Speriamo comunque di poter organizzare in futuro un vero corso nell'aula reale con la parte pratica sul sito come pensavamo inizialmente. Auguri e grazie mille. Grazie a tutti, io mi unisco ai ringraziamenti di Anni. Voglio ringraziare l'Università di Bologna, tutti con cui abbiamo lavorato, che sono rimasti nel nostro cuore. Veramente siamo diventati molto vicini. Ringrazio sia la parte armena sia la parte italiana, tutti e auguro pace a tutti i paesi del mondo.
Thank you. Thank you both for the technical presentation and for the warm words that you have pronounced and for the word wishing everybody a peace in the world, because that is really a very important passage. Okay, so I will give now the floor to Sara Fiorentino to conclude the section about capacity building. Sara, yes.
Okay, here I am. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you, and then I'm going to start with my presentation.
Excellent. Okay, we see your screen. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Abbiati, for the floor. In this very short presentation, I will be speaking about Project ROCHEMP Action D I've been collaborating on as a consultant. As Mariangela and Tanya anticipated, Action D can be defined as a kind of a curriculum development to be. I mean that this action has been aimed at assessing criteria for the development of a training curriculum for conservator restorers of cultural heritage in Armenia. In terms of beneficiaries, Action D has been targeted to main groups of professional figures. On the one hand, we have professors, researchers, technical staff, and higher education students, as well as master's students, but I guess PhDs as well, involved on topics related to cultural heritage in terms of conservation, care, enhancement, and of course, restoration. The second group of beneficiaries can be recognized in local and international experts, employees, and operators working in the field of preservation and enhancement of cultural heritage. Action D had some expected outputs to be reached. On a short-term basis, these outputs, the main output, can be identified in the assessment of current scenario related to the training of conservator restorers in Armenia. This basically means to carry out a needs analysis, and I will be describe the way this need analysis has been conducted later on in my presentation. In terms of expected outputs on a long-term basis, Action D has set the basis for the development of recommendations and guidelines for the training of conservator restorers following international standards. This is quite an important topic. I will return on this topic later on because we have tried to carry out a comparative work when carrying out the need analysis, and the Armenian scenario has been compared not only to the Italian one, but to the international, to the European one as well. And in terms of other main expected output, there is, of course, the establishment of a dedicated training course in conservation and the restoration of a cultural heritage in Armenia, not only dedicated to architectural restoration, but to the restoration of archaeological and historical artistic heritage as well. So the first action, the first task carried out in the frame of Action D has been, as I anticipated, a need analysis. In order for this analysis, for this need analysis to be carried out, a survey has been designed and prepared, jointly prepared. There has been a collaboration between the dedicated staff from the Department of Cultural Heritage and the ROCHEMP Center's staff in preparing the survey. The survey has been aimed at collecting and comparing all relevant information on how conservator restorers are currently trained in Armenia and, of course, in Italy, because the following step has been the comparison between these different scenarios. Parallel to the survey, local meetings have been organized in Armenia between ROCHEMP Center staff and institutions currently involved and operating in the field of conservation restoration. This was done because we didn't want to limit need analysis to collecting information through surveys, but as the staff of ROCHEMP Center highlighted, there also was the very important need to have a direct contact with local realities operating in the field of conservation and restoration. So I will briefly show you results from needs analysis. In particular, collected data highlighted strengths and weaknesses that currently impact on the qualification and training of conservator restorers in Armenia. In terms of strengths, we can say that Armenia definitely has a consolidated experience in architectural restoration based on a sound theoretical approach linked to well-established and structured educational institutions. On the other hand, we also highlighted some weaknesses. For example, there is an almost complete lack of training courses for conservator restorers intended to work on archaeological and historical artistic artifacts. We have mainly non-academic bodies involved in the development of conservative practices. And from a legal perspective, we also highlighted that there is not an official regulation in force defining criteria and professional skills a conservator restorer has to possess in order to intervene on cultural heritage. Then we broadened our comparison. First, we started, as I anticipated before, with a comparison between Armenian scenario and Italian regulation into force. In particular, we worked on the current regulation in force defining criteria for training and qualification of conservator restorers of cultural heritage in Italy. And here you can see some of the legal documents that were translated into English in order to provide them the comparison with the Armenian regulation, with the Armenian scenario. And then we moved on to international recommendations. I mean, we carried out a comparison between our collected data and guidelines and strategic documents promoted by ECHO and ENCORE. And for those of you who could not be familiar with ECCO and ENCORE, I'd like to spend a few words on these associations. ECCO is the European Confederation of Conservator Restorers Organizations. It was established in 1997, and it has the task to promote the figure of conservator restorers at an European level as a highly qualified academic trained figure. And then we have ENCORE. ENCORE works together with ECCO, basically, and it is a European network for institutions, higher education institutions, delivering training courses for conservator restorers on an academic basis. Basically, ENCORE is a recipient for ECCO regulations, and it puts regulations and recommendations into practice. The aim is to provide a sound and shared background for academic training of conservator restorers in order for them to be qualified for properly operating on cultural heritage. This is the last point, let's say the last task developed within Action D. Basically, we collaborated on the development of a programmatic document, which is a preliminary proposal that could set the basis for the establishment of a training course in conservation and restoration of movable and immovable cultural heritage in Armenia. This programmatic document is currently undergoing its very final revision here at the Department of Cultural Heritage, and it will be shared with ROCHEMP Center for being translated into Armenian, implemented, and then submitted to the Ministry of Education, Science, Culture and Sport of the Republic of Armenia. Which brings me to the end of my presentation, but I will be spend one more minute to thank all the persons from both the Department of Cultural Heritage, the University of Bologna, and of course the ROCHEMP staff, the staff of the ROCHEMP Center, who has been collaborating on the development and implementation of Action D. And of course, I'd like to thank all of you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for providing us this detailed description of the actions that have been performed in the framework of the ROCHEMP project. And I will proceed to the next topic that we are going to address, which is the implementation of preservation and high quality design in preservation. And now we have 4 speakers, I think, for this topic. The first speaker is Nanar Kalantarian from the ROCHEMP Center.
Hello, nice to greet you here. I'm very glad to be a part of this team and to work on very important topic. I have trouble with sharing my screen, so Anya Avakian will help me.
Can you see the screen?
It's not in presentation mode. I don't know why. You clicked on the right button, but it doesn't go, doesn't switch on the presentation.
Okay, then I will keep on going like this if you don't mind, just to show. Yeah. Okay.
So I will present you the action C. Annie, can you change the Annie?
Okay.
Can you
Yeah, I'm changing.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I will talk about running laws and processes in Armenia. Our staff work on the legislation of Armenia. Our target was identify criteria and standards for quality restoration and have been implemented in the work of ROCHEMP project from December 2019 and to February 2021. ROCHEMP staff are carried out accurate and in-depth analysis current legislation in the Republic of Armenia of the processes that regulate design and implementation. Intervention has been highlighted the weak pointed in the legislation of protection and use of historical cultural heritage of the processes for designing and quality preservation project. The definition of clear guidelines to be adopted for regulation of the designing of conservation project is a key to allow more transparent and efficient evaluation system and will help to preserve cultural heritage. Amijan. So we have stopped another. Next one, Amijan. So we have studied the law of Republic of Armenia about protection of used immovable historical and cultural monuments in the historical environment. Also the decision procedure of order of state registry, observation, protection, conservation, renovation, restoration, and use of immovable monuments of history and culture. Also, we have another important document that rules licensing of architects, structural engineers of the documents issued by Chamber of Architects of Armenia. Next. So we are stopping the Article 14, new object inclusion in a removal from the monument state inventory list, including a new object in the state inventory list of monuments, and removing from those lists is carried out based on the positive opinion of experts committee in order to define by the government of Republic of Armenia. But in the decision, we also have that the object can be removed by the state inventory list of monuments only in case it, influenced by natural artificial factors, is completely destroyed, or it is not subject to restoration, or has lost historical and cultural scientific value. It is not clear in the article what it means that it has lost historical and cultural scientific value. In the Article 21, we have a sentence that destroying monument is prohibited. But we have also the displacement of monument of Republican and local value, alteration of monuments of the Republican value can be executed only in the exclusive cases by authorization of the government Republic of Armenia, and alteration of monuments of local value by authorization of the state territorial administration bodies. Next one. While studying the law, we have noticed that in 2003, the Article 35 has been amended. So changes has been made, which states that list of monuments of Republic Armenia, which are not subjected to alienation, is approved by the government of Armenia. Previous article mentioned that the approval has been done by National Assembly. In 2015, members of parliament presented a draft legislation to the National Assembly, and they want to do some changes in this article. They have written that after above mentioned amendment in the law in 2003, this authority has transferred to government of the Republic of Armenia, after which many of monuments protected by the state, particularly in Yerevan, were demolished for urban development purposes. In this letter, they have presented about 80 monuments only in Yerevan that has been damaged, demolished, and removed. So I can show you some examples. The Northern Avenue urban plan that has been done. 8 listed monuments were demolished, and one of these monuments reconstructed in another place. We have an upgoing project, Old Yerevan district. In this area, we have 13 listed monuments. And also we have another project, so-called Firdus districts. Here in this area, we have 9 listed monuments, and also we have buildings, they must be revalued. And now our government announced another tender according to the Gon district, and we must be very careful to not make the same mistakes. Next, Anijan. So in the article 20, we also mentioned that new found or newly valued object which has historical, scientific, artistic, or cultural value receives a status of a new found monument and is protected until being included in the state inventory list of monuments in order to be defined by the legislation. We read it and it's okay, but then we discovered that the government approved the latest list of the monument in 27. The required from the ministry the standards and guidelines which will allow them to evaluate listed objects. Up to now, there are not prepared guidelines and the state inventory list of the monument hasn't been updated. So it is very important topic. And the same remarks were made by the other Armenian specialists in the reports on the matter. For instance, a study, analysis, and development program for legislative basis of the protection of historical and cultural monuments carried out by Urban Lab Yerevan Institution in 2012. Another mission in this topic we have in the technical part of the inventory list. The tables are made not proper way, using not proper softwares and layouts. Some descriptions aren't accurate, and it will be better to select common terms, languages, so experts can choose it from the description of the monument. We have, in this sphere, it is very important collaboration with international experts and examination the state monument inventory lists of other countries. We have some meetings with ICOMOS Armenia, with some experts and discussing this very important topic. So I will continue with Article 30. It's about the aims of conservation, renovation, and restoration of the monuments. So in this article has been written how they explain these terms, the aim of conservation, the aim of renovation, the main aim of restoration. Can you change, Anijan? I will not read it. It's the whole article, but the problem is not only in the wording of these definitions in the law, but also in the conceptual difference of approach to the conservation, renovation, and restoration of the monument in Armenia. Namely, most of the monuments in Armenia are partially in ruins. In the process of their restoration, the aim of the intervention is to create more favorable conditions for the modern use. The law allows to the owner to recreate the shape of the building or full competition if there is information of its initial or historically generated image. In this case, we get restored and renovated building, but we lose the antiquity and historical value of the monument. This latter is in a contradiction with international regulations, which Armenia is part of. So we have another problems, the requirements of construction companies eager to work conservation restoration projects should be set. The same company cannot work on all types of the monuments without specific training and expertise. The field is not regulated in Armenia. There is no consistency in work implementation in a way that different construction companies can conduct with implementation work at the different stages of conservation restoration project. The latter is not in the interests of monuments. Also, we have a problem in limitation of time for the research period is comparison with project design period. Moreover, in many cases, the result of research are not used as a basis designing conservation restoration project. Often the research is not paid, although it's costly. Thus, we suggest to provide differentiated funds for the research of monument and for the project design, to prescribe by the regulation the need to apply the results research into the project design. Another problem we have of archival materials in the research and project design are very complicated by the strict rules promoted by the archive itself and by high prices for acquiring any price of piece of information or documentation. I mean, photos, drawings. The price is the same for both students and specialists. The income from these payments is not spent transparently, and besides, the architect or the historians cannot let them to use all the archival materials because of high price. It would be better also to do in the law to make deterioration and stratigraphic drawings in the research and further project design. Consult with our Italian colleagues regarding Italian experience for the structural engineers level of expertise and required experience in the field of cultural heritage preservation with a view of post certain requirements for structural engineers working in the field as well. Moreover, ROCHEMP Center can develop and implement a training course for structural engineers working in the field of cultural heritage preservation in Armenia in the future. So I would like to end my speech by another problem. Up to date in Armenia, there is no guidebook for organizing preservation work in the field. The book we used now is published in 1991. It is originally in Russian and made and has many drawbacks, such as calculation are made in rubles. Some updates are not reflected in the book, and generally speaking in the content does not corresponding to the Armenian realities. We suggest to work on the definition of new price lists, which will take account in Armenian specificities and will correspond to the accepted international standards. So I would like to say that it is very important working with international specialists, and I hope that we will continue, the ROCHEMP project will be continued, and we will get more results. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
And I would like to thank you all of the team that have worked in this project. It's very interesting, and I would like to be it continued.
Thank you, Nanar. Thank you very much. And of course, the legal framework is a key point. And I mean, sharing the experiences and sharing the view of different legislation is very helpful in order to protect such a fragile and important heritage as cultural heritage is, which is exposed to major risk and damages. So I think it's very important to build up a proper legal framework in order, which is shared by countries, so that we have a common view about how to preserve our cultural heritage all around the world. Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Gayane Kasnati.
Good morning.
Morning.
Everyone, let me share my presentation. Thank you very much. And thank you, Nanar, for introducing so well our speech and our topics. Let me see.
Yeah.
How can I?
It's always a difficult task.
Okay, yes. Okay. Is it okay? Do you see
yes,
it?
It's fine. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so after the beautiful presentation from Nanar of the studies that have been implemented on the laws, I will speak a little bit about the working methodology we adopted for this study, and which is the background and the aims of this work, the assumptions that we had, the activities that were implemented. First of all, I have to mention that this Action C from ROCHEMP was organized with a coordination group that was composed and is composed by Armenian and Italian experts. And in particular, we have I want to mention Ms. Nune Petrosyan that is working in the Ministry of Urban Planning that can give to us a strong link with what is happening on the ground in Armenia. Well, I don't mention all our group of experts from ROCHEMP that you see here named in the presentation. First of all, the background. We arrived to these studies from a very, very long path. This component C of the ROCHEMP project was considered particularly important by the Ministry of Culture. So when the first rows of the ROCHEMP project were written a long time ago, because the first idea of this project was born in 2014 after the successful implementation of a cooperation project that was implemented by the Politecnico di Milano in Armenia, and the Ministry of Culture expressly asked for having this component. This is because it was felt the need to improve this work. Well, Italian and Armenian collaboration in the field of cultural heritage and the field of monuments restoration dates back to the 60s, when Professor Pago Novello came in Armenia the first time and got involved with Armenian monuments and started to study and document Armenian architecture. A very important moment was the organization of International Symposia of Armenian Art, that opened Armenia, that in that time was a Soviet, and so was very difficult to be accessed by Europeans, and in the same time opened Italy to Armenians, and so it had a great influence on the evolution of the thought about monuments study and preservation. All the work that Italians made in Armenia since the beginning was a work of collaboration. Maybe it is because we have a very similar way of being involved in this situation. We are very warm people, both of us, and so this maybe was the reason of this successful collaboration. But the fact is that this collaboration lasted many years. Politecnico di Milano had a big role, and I want to thank Professor Maurizio Borriani and Professor Maria Cristina Gianbruno that really gave a big input and worked a lot in this field. So after these experiences that were on the field and also in the classroom, because training was always flanked, as it is in ROCHEMP project, training is and should always be flanked to the activity on the field. Well, the previous project was closed with an international conference and with a roundtable where the Ministry of Culture and all the experts invited from 23 different nations met together and assessed the importance of continuing mobilizing for made available sources for supporting, enhancing and promoting cultural heritage, and the idea to create an international work group consisting of experts from different institutions for improving the field of cultural heritage preservation. And after many years, finally, ROCHEMP project came to life and made possible some of these dreams that at that time were dreams. So when we started ROCHEMP project, we already had a background, we already had a history of preservation and of collaboration, and we already knew somehow how the field was working. In the same time, we collected and we discussed with many experts, with many local experts, and we found that it was created an Armenian Association of Architect Restorers that made a statement that was sent to UNESCO and to the Armenian government, assessing the need of reforms in the sector and the urgency of this reform to allow a better work in the preservation of the monuments. So the aim of our work was to support Armenian institutions in this burden and to keep up also with the international debate on quality and restoration, to favor an intergenerational exchange that is struggling in Armenia, also due to immigration that happened just after the independence of Armenia. And it is very important to support multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. We see that sometimes it's useful to come from Italy to make Armenian experts meet, because there was not the used working collaboration. And also another important topic, Mr. Capacino said that we should have always an eye open to the development, and the lack of a price list for preservation work and the lack of organization of the restoration field is somehow stopping foreign investment in this field. So we think that it's important to work in this field also for this reason. The assumptions are, well, we are looking to all Europe and to the whole world. We are in a globalized world. So Armenia should be at the same level of the other nations, and all are now stuck by the economic crisis, but in the same time we have new opportunities given by the new technologies. So new challenges and new opportunities, and all these factors are impacting on cultural heritage preservation. And everywhere is felt the need of rethinking the actual processes to improve the results of the commitment of each stakeholder. What the study of the ROCHEMP experts on the Armenian laws showed is that sometimes, well, in the Armenian law is prescribed the respect of all international agreements, but this sometimes is contradictory with what is written in the law. So this should be revised and improved. Another problem that is very important to be addressed is the preservation of the authenticity of the monuments. We should always keep the highest respect for the historic, artistic, and social values that the cultural heritage bears, and this is not always respected in the actual practice. So we think that the definition of clear guidelines to be adopted for regulating the designing of conservation projects is key to allow more transparent and efficient evaluation system, and thus a higher quality of the project and their successful implementation. Also, the availability of a clear definition and pricing of the operation to be implemented would really much facilitate the achievement of higher quality standards. We have seen from the study that Nanar presented that often the firms that are working, the constructors that are working on the monuments doesn't need to have, according to current legislation, doesn't need to have a very high qualification. So it's very important that the architects give to them very precise inputs. So how did we implement these activities? First of all, we had a component of study tours and training in Italy, and Ms. Anivakian came in Italy for a short period, but the COVID outbreak prevented us to organize the training that were thought in the beginning of the project. So there is the need to continue this and to provide further technical training in the laboratories of the University of Bologna in Italy for Armenian experts. We had many meetings with relevant stakeholders, and here also the COVID outbreak somehow prevented Italian experts to come to Armenia as often as we wanted, but the staff of ROCHEMP made fantastic work, and many meetings were organized, because well, we think that the dialogue, a continuous dialogue with all the stakeholders is key to achieve achieve good results. And the idea is really to work in collaboration and to humbly offer our support with the comparison with our experiences. But the most important stakeholders in this process are local people, local experts, and local stakeholders. As we have seen, the study of the current legislation was very important, and this process has just started and highlighted many topics that should be better addressed with also work of with local experts. So for the future, there is still a lot of work to do. And as I've previously mentioned, the confrontation with international experiences is very precious. Armenia is very active, we should say, and Armenia signed all the international convention for cultural heritage. And the problem is to better study the content of this convention and to reflect them in actual legislation, because while the legislation is saying that the precedence should be given, priority should be given to international standards, but in fact, the fact that they are not reflected in the articles of the law create some inconsistencies and some problems in the practice. Another activity that was implemented was this attentive survey of the methodologies for monuments preservation adopted in Armenia since the creation of the first Armenian Republic. So we studied, on our case study, the scientific committee of ROCHEMP project selected as a case study the Basilica of Ereruik. It's a very important monument that is in Syunik region. And in collaboration with Nuaka University, with Professor Alma and upon the request by the Armenian Ministry of Culture, we are studying the Basilica and we are experimenting there all the processes of study and design of preservation of an Armenian monument. And the first phases of the study was the study of the previous restoration that the monument underwent. And if you see in this image, you would see how many stones were changed during the history of the monuments. And this is an example of drawings taken from archives where the project were designed. And so we see that really we should reflect on methodologies for preservation of the monuments that would avoid the change of so many parts of the monument and would try to keep the authenticity of the monuments the most possible intact, although considering the challenges that monuments are to face, because well, the climate of Armenia is very hard and earthquakes are frequent, but it's very important really to reflect on the methodologies of work. What is very important, if we want to study something, we should be able to word and to give the name to the things that we are studying. So one of the activities that was started during the previous cooperation project was the translation of the ICOMOS glossary for stone deterioration patterns. That was implemented by architect Nanar Kalantarian. That is a very, very precious resource for ROCHEMP Center. And it will be officially published soon by ICOMOS on its website. So it's a complete dictionary of all the possible deterioration that stony materials can undergo. So the testing on the field of the findings of the research is considered a very important component of task C, and is undergoing now on Ereruik, where we are working with Nuaka University and with the collaboration of local experts, as Mr. Simavorian. And we also are building on the previous experience and of the previous field yards, analyzing factors of success, also of unsuccess, because, for instance, in Kobair, the collaboration with Armenian authorities and Armenian constructors were not really successful, and so led to some problems for the future preservation of the monument. Some misunderstanding were there. So now for this section C, we will provide to Armenian authorities a full report on the activities implemented and the two components of project quality, the indication for the quality of the project of preservation that Professor Pretelli will present now, and a proposal for a complete price list that is considered very important for making people able to design an intervention until the end, an implementable project, and to allow also possible donors to know how much does it cost a preservation intervention. There are many other things on which we should work on the complete database of the monuments. So when we had this terrible experience of the war in Karabakh, a lot of problems were highlighted also in the field of monuments preservation. And so the lack of information concerning the monuments that are now passed on the other side and made us understand which is the importance of the component that Nanar mentioned before, the ability of the Armenian institution to have a complete and precise database of all the heritage, completed with the map of the risk, of geological risk, and also risk connected to human factors. So I would like to conclude thanking all the different people with whom we collaborated for this project, starting with the Italian coordinator, first of all, Mariangela Vandini and Tania Chini, with the Professor Pretelli and Zampini, with whom we collaborated very intensively. But what I would like to highlight is that the most important component of this project is the fact that now we have a permanent staff in Armenia. The sustainability of the project was ensured by the Ministry of Culture of Armenia. So we are very happy, and I think that the most important work is the one that expect our precious workers, precious staff, Ani, Gayane, Nanar, and Bohar. Thank you very much to all of you, and give the floor to you. Thank you very much. I give back.
Thank you. Bringing us to Armenia with slides and with the presentation about the that are still open and on the floor, and which needs to be present in the near future. Now I give the floor to Professor Pretelli to continue this topic. Please.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I would like also to thank you, Marco, for your presence of your presentation. Thank you. And I would like also to thank you. You can understand that the presence of Gayane Kasnati was really important in this project. It was really a good partner on which we can work a lot. We worked a lot with her. It was really interesting experience. But anyway, everything was possible thanks to Mariangela Vandini and Tania Chini on the Italian side, and on the Armenian side, thanks to Ani Avagian, Nanar Kalantarian, and Goar Ovakimian. This was a really important thing that we worked together. Last but not least, I have to thank, before she will appear, Alessia Zampini. She's my collaborator, and she made a really incredible work. I will share my presentation these times. Okay, that's the right one.
Okay. Yes, we see it.
Perfect. Very good. I hope you see it well. So in this project, I worked with Gayane, with Nanar on this topic. The topic was to give some advice for the quality of the project. I hope that you see it. And we worked. So do you see?
We see the presentation. It's not in the presentation mode. You have to show the slide, a single slide in this way.
Right.
You have to switch to the presentation mode as you wish.
Yes. Okay. I will do it. Sorry. Okay. So many presentations in the same moment.
Okay. Now presentation mode. Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So the problem is that we worked on something that was started before with the Polytechnic of Milan. Gayane was the link to this experience, was a really good link. She worked so well. And at the end of the work, we didn't work a lot on the field, because the problem of coronavirus and all the problem related to the coronavirus didn't allow us to work in this field, but we worked a lot on some of the problems that are related to the control or quality of the project. So here I will just give you some preliminary remarks on the problem of quality in the project of preservation. It's quite well known now in the field of preservation of historic architecture that the issue of preserving historic architecture is not something related simply to the fact that we have a good project. The project of preservation is quite important. Absolutely, it's important, but we have to also work on all the things that are preceding the work of drawing the project, or making the project. One of the things on which we would like to work, and we worked a lot, was the idea of the future use of these monuments. And when I say future use, I'm not just speaking to something that could be used, new, totally new, brand new, related to the old buildings, but also to the old uses. You know that you have these two roads, possibilities. One of the possibilities that you have a building that are not useful anymore. And this means that they will be ruined in a short time, because use is absolutely important to make sure that the building will be preserved. On the other hand, the risk that you have a use that is not the right one for the old buildings. You can see on the left of this photographs. So too many people that are using a building, and historic buildings are really delicate in this sense. So choosing the use is absolutely important, and we would like to work with our works on this topic. On the other hand, when you decide which is the use that you would like to do, you have to decide the use with the eye focused on the preservation architecture. You have to decide in which way you use the architecture, so how the new use will affect the old one. And we work also on this topic, trying to find the use that can organize the new uses in the old buildings. And on that end, we would like to give some help to the people that will decide in the future if the use will be the right one or not. Another problem is this one is quite important to remember, that nowadays life is totally different from the one the life in the past. So you need a lot of more sophistication in the buildings. And this picture would like to mean that there is in which you can fall, at least that putting new uses with new planes, for instance, technological planes in all buildings could be really a dangerous topic on which everyone has to work a lot. And then, on the other hand, you have to decide in which way you have to put the micro functions, or we have to locate the micro function in the whole building. This is also important. So This is the topic. So you have to collect information on the building before preparing the project of restoration, and you have to transform them in knowledge. So you have to put together all this kind of information together to produce something that is useful to drive, to steer the future of the building. So we have all this kind of knowledges, for instance, geometric knowledge, and we decide that geometric knowledge is something that has to be related to new technologies, and it doesn't matter if you collect them with the old meters or old instruments. The problem is to relate this knowledge to new possibilities that you have in the future, like BIM or HBIM, and also all the GIS technologies that are absolutely important to permit in the future to have something that is related to the world. And everything has to be prepared in a digital format, of course. And this is just the geometric survey. But geometric survey is that's the first step which we have to work. The other step is the knowledge of the constituent materials. And this is quite important in a place like Armenia, in which apparently you have just a few materials, but all these materials could be new, old, could admit also that some dangerous materials like cement that in the Soviet era was absolutely common, like in other, also in Italy, for instance, cement was quite used in the restoration. So this is the second step of this knowledge. The third step, this one, is a step in which we don't work so deeply generally, and but in Italy we did some step forward in the last years, and you have to understand which is the relation between the parts of the buildings. So what it's loading and what it's bearing, and how they work. And this is absolutely important in a place like Armenia, in which you have earthquakes that could be a big danger for the building. So understanding in a clear way which is the relation between the part that constitutes the buildings is absolutely important. And this another step in which we decide to work, that is the frame of the building and the crack of the buildings, and that could be really interesting to interpret the behavior, structural behavior of the building. And this is another topic on which in Italy we worked a lot in the past, and this kind of knowledge is absolutely interesting because we avoided some kind of work in which we just put our idea of structural ideas on how a building works on buildings that were built before the age in which we can numerically control the structure. And this is quite important also to test the building, because we can understand what's happening in the building, what's happened in the past in the building. Last step in which we worked, and on which also Alessandra we say something in the next presentation, is the knowledge of degradation and decay conditions of the building. And all these data are interrelated, and all together they constitute knowledge. This is absolutely important step on which we speak about the decay processes, physical and chemical, and we can speak about, we can try to understand the way in which the decay worked and will work in the future, so we can work on prevention of decay. So these are all the steps that are important to assess the quality of a project, starting from something that began before the work on the building, and finishing to the instrument that Alessandra will illustrate in a few minutes. So I finished the part of the pre-drawing, pre-project, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Pretelli, for this presentation, which brought us inside the activities and the practical intervention that can be planned in the framework of the conservation of natural heritage. And I give immediately the floor to Alessia Zampini to continue with the topic. Please, Alessia.
So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the words, for giving me the stage. I start sharing my screen. Let's see if it works.
Yes, we see.
Okay.
But it's not playing. Okay, now it's better. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to be very quick in this last part. In this final presentation of this group regarding the higher quality in the design and implementation of preservation project, we decided to focus our attention on the list of works, which is at the sort of the base for the bill of quantities and for the price list. What happened and why we decided to focus our attention on these specific tools? Because thanks to the very careful analysis of the current norm and regulation and processes that our Armenian colleagues had, and also thanks to this interview and survey with different stakeholders that were involved in the design and implementation, so in different grade and phases of the process of the conservation project, one of the main critical points that emerged that we realized was that these very important tools, especially if compared to what is happening in Italy and how the process is ruled in Italy, bill of quantities and price list are, for the Armenian context, underestimate and little used tool. Because Nanar Kalantarian before anticipated very well the reason of this not properly use of the documents, because they're not carefully detailed, they're not updated. The version that is current in use was inherited by the Soviet, so it was in Russian, so there are some problems also with the money translation, and also it comes from the 1991. So because of these reasons, we also start to think why they can be these tools, so the price list and the bill of quantities that both are based on the list of works can be important. And some of these points, we have tried to summarize them, but you have already heard by my colleagues before. It's very important to focus the attention on this tool because they can be a real grant for the quality of the restoration. Because I think, for example, what does they mean for designers? If designers are asked to deal with the draft of a list of a bill of quantities, they need to have a deeper insight on the process of restoration. So they also had to maybe control better all the phases of the design process. So not just giving let's say a master plan, but they need to go focus and go till the executive phase. So it's very important for the designer, but also for the client as well, because if we think that this kind of instrument could be put at the base for contracts with construction companies, it is a guarantee that execution and construction will correspond to what was foreseen at the project stage. So it's a very important document. And at the same time, for the construction company themselves can be very important, because if they needed to have subcontractor, for example, or if they needed to add more workings during for a specific work, they can have and they can ask for an appropriate payment for their extra work. So it's very important. And also, let's think for what it can mean. So, for example, for national or international investor that can be interested in funding in some way restoration project in Armenia. having a clear definition of the cost and of the workings prevented the fact that there could be unforeseen cost or unforeseen workings that can slow down the process and also jeopardizing at the end the complete success of the investment. So it is not just a theory, but it's a kind of practice that a lot of the stakeholders that our Armenian colleagues interviewed expressed, and it was a very critical point that in a lot of so much times emerged from this survey, from this dialogue that we had with the expert in Armenia. So what we decided to do, we decided to check to all the main price lists that are available in Italy. There are some national price lists, like for example the one that is produced by that is related to the restoration of artistic artifacts, but also we made a comparison, a cross comparison with also the regional price list. And why it was so important to have this check with the regional price list, because these price lists are involving also traditional techniques, craftsmanship that are different from one region to another. So what we realized is that even if there are some points that are in common, obviously that are shared by the whole nation, there are a lot of differences between each region. For example, think what could mean making a restoration project in Venice and dealing with all the let's say, the danger of the water, or doing it in a mountain context. So very different context also means different traditional techniques, architectural techniques, and also different price list. At the end of this process, of this cross comparison, we tried to have the more extensive and the wider list of works that we could collect. So we did not make a selection, but we were in this case trying to put all the list and all the workings together. Because what we realized was that these price lists are useful for the Italian situation, but a step further should be done, which is to say a comparison and with the Armenian context. So we made an Italian we made a wider list made in Italian. Then we translated in English just the titles and the keywords of each one of these works. And we produced this short list, we could say, which is not short in the terms of number of workings, but just reduced in the description of the workings. And we made a translation, which is, we think, a very useful tool also for an international diffusion and also for international, let's say, debate. The one that you see here are the 20 categories that we defined in doing the works. So, and I would like just to spend a few words on the preliminary operation and knowledge, where we spent a lot of time in this section because we were strongly convinced about the importance of fostering this kind of activities, the preliminary operation, so in the investigation, all the studies, historical studies that are so important, and also that we realized, thanks to the Armenian colleagues, that are not so take into consideration when the process of restoration is implemented in Armenia. So we tried to get very let's say, strong attention to this point. And then what could be the future development of this work, of course? Obviously, it will be very interesting to establish an observatory on the restoration works carried out in Armenia. This will be very important because it could allow us to collect data regarding high-profile intervention, regarding, for example, and this could be very important for defining traditional techniques that are obviously different from the Italian one, or also traditional craftsmanship that maybe are not the same from the Italian one, and that can be included into the list, because the idea is that the fact that this list has to be tailored on the Armenian situation. Moreover, thanks to this data, we could try to set and provide a statistic analysis of the cost that can be very helpful for, at the end, having a more updated price list in this case that can be truly useful for the operators and the designer and all the craftsmanship that are working and all the stakeholders that are involved as we have seen in the process. So thank you very much for your attention, and I just would like to take one moment for thank all the Italian and Armenian institutions that made the project possible, all the Italian and Armenian colleagues. And it was very, I had the chance to be there to spend 2 weeks in Yerevan for the training. And I get emotional because it was an amazing experience. So thank you to everyone. And also to the participants to the training, because spending that time with them in Armenia was very, something very amazing. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Alessia. And I mean, your feeling shows how relevant was the project, not only from the technical point of view, not only from the achievements in terms of science, in terms of cultural heritage, but also in terms of personal growth of everybody. I mean, all of us that have been involved in the project are keeping in our earth a piece of the experience and memory of the time we spent in Yerevan together with the Armenian colleagues and Armenian people. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you also for your view for the future, which is very important to see what can be the next step in the framework of the project. Thank you. And now we are addressing the last part, the last technical part, practical part, which is dealing with communication. We live in the era where communication is a key element. Doing things without communicating them is like not doing anything. So the communication, especially in this very difficult time for Armenia, I think is very important, not only within Armenia, but especially out of Armenia. And I'm going to give immediately the floor to Professor Iannucci to start this section about communication. Bye.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. Hello, Marco. And thanks for introducing me in the conference. I'm very delighted to take part on this emotional conference with colleagues and friends from Armenia and Italy. The friendship and the hospitality are important features of ROCHEMP project, I think, and also features of the Italian and Armenian people. I'll give my speech in Italian language, but with the help of Goar, I hope by the next days to translate it in Armenian language, perhaps for the blog of ROCHEMP site. Okay, my focus is communication and the cultural memory of Armenia between Europe and Asia as a part of cultural heritage. So I try to share my screen for show you some pictures.
I'm sure you succeed.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, let's go on. Now we see the screen.
Okay.
No, put on
presentation. Okay.
Now,
there we are. Okay. Bene, allora in questi 10 minuti che ho a disposizione vorrei fare una breve riflessione anche nella prospettiva di continuità di sviluppo del progetto e del suo impatto di comunicazione sullo scenario, sul complessivo scenario della memoria culturale che rende l'Armenia in sé uno straordinario monumento universale del patrimonio culturale che unisce l'Europa all'Asia. Queste brevi riflessioni partono da una tradizione mitografica a cui diamo il nome di classica, con quindi quando usiamo la parola classica intendiamo, diamo un'implicita e credo sbagliata equivalenza tra il classico, ciò che è classico, e europeo, come se i due aggettivi fossero appunto sinonimi. Ecco, in realtà queste riflessioni credo che portino, spero che portino a riconoscere nell'Armenia non solo un ponte tra Europa e Asia, ma un concreto e reale territorio comune in cui questa distinzione, Europa e Asia, perde di significato. Da questo punto di vista, in questa prospettiva, tutta l'Armenia, il territorio, i suoi monumenti, la sua lingua, le sue tradizioni antichissime che risalgono ai confini tra preistoria e protostoria, possono ambire, credo, a essere riconosciuti nei termini UNESCO di patrimonio dell'umanità. Ecco, quindi il mio auspicio è che le attività di ROCHEMP nel prossimo futuro possano portare a questa attenzione pubblica di una specificità armena, fino appunto ad articolare e motivare un riconoscimento che sia rivolto non a specifici monumenti e tradizioni come quelle appunto consolidate dei monasteri, che sono appunto già parte del patrimonio universale UNESCO, ma appunto all'insieme della sua storia culturale e territoriale. E partiamo quindi da questi due nomi, Europa e Asia. Europa è il nome di una fanciulla rapita da Zeus che si era trasformato in toro, rapita da Zeus a Tiro, in Fenicia, ecco, oggi diremmo in Siria, e portata a Creta, dove dalle ceneri di un'antica cultura mediterranea nasce, si sviluppa quella civiltà greca che si tende a riconoscere come la matrice identitaria di un'Europa che sconfina verso il mare del nord, ma che proveniva piuttosto da nord e da oriente, e proprio da quegli altipiani armeni e caucasici di cui appunto facevo riferimento prima. Il nome Europa significa dagli occhi grandi, quindi Europa è una fanciulla dagli occhi grandi, e questo implica anche la capacità dello sguardo di vedere oltre, di andare oltre. Asia invece è il nome della figlia di Oceano, il grande fiume che circondava la terra conosciuta, e di Teti, ma in particolare è moglie di Giappeto, uno dei titani che sfidarono a Zeus, e Giappeto appunto insieme a Asia diedero vita appunto a Prometeo. Quindi Asia è la madre di Prometeo, l'eroe del mito che insieme al fuoco ha donato all'uomo le tecniche, la cottura del cibo, la costruzione di case, di attrezzi, lo studio degli astri e dei fenomeni naturali, e lo ha così portato fuori dalla preistoria verso la civiltà fatta di agricolture, di famiglie ampie ed estese, i clan appunto, e di città. Il nome di Asia in fenicio o forse nell'antico accadico forse potrebbe significare Oriente, non è certo, o comunque l'itinerario della rotta del giro da cui proviene il Sole. In questo ritratto del IV secolo che vedete inciso su un vaso è raffigurata come con una lunga veste greca e delle scarpette che si notano qui poco, che sono di foggia persiana, potremmo dire provenienti dall'odierno Iran, sempre come dire ai confini con l'Armenia di cui stiamo parlando. Dall'Iran, o meglio da quella cultura o gruppo linguistico a cui i glottologi, i linguisti, hanno dato il nome di indo-iranico, di cui anche l'antico armeno è parte. Ecco, queste sono antiche leggende che rivelano però un'identità che è molto diversa, che è ben altro, ecco, rispetto ai luoghi comuni, ai confini e all'approccio, all'immaginario complessivo delle odierne carte geografiche. La mappa dell'identità culturale di un paese, di molti paesi, è spesso ben più articolata rispetto a quanto in genere si pensi. E in particolare tra le steppe eurasiatiche e l'altopiano del Caucaso, ancora oggi permane una lingua e una cultura armena che è erede di migrazioni indoeuropee risalenti a circa 4.000 anni prima di Cristo. Non è chiaro, non è certo e forse non è nemmeno così importante ipotizzare, come alcuni studiosi hanno fatto, che proprio il territorio dell'Armenia storica rappresenti la sede originaria delle popolazioni indoeuropee che successivamente migrarono portando le proprie lingue, le proprie tradizioni verso Occidente, verso Oriente e ancora verso il nord e il sud. Più probabilmente gli stessi armeni giungevano in questo territorio provenendo da Occidente, in ondate successive, a occupare l'antica sede del regno urarteo. Ma resta in ogni caso un valore simbolico e identitario di questa regione caucasica e quella transcaucasica, in cui la cultura armena storica si è diffusa e di cui si è alimentata a partire da questa comune matrice indoeuropea che unisce l'Europa nord-occidentale al Mediterraneo, l'area slava e baltica, all'area slava e baltica fino al Medio Oriente e fino all'India. Tra i reperti più antichi della cultura armena, molti dei quali sono conservati nella National Gallery, dove simbolicamente ha sede ROCHEMP, e quelli più recenti, come appunto gli straordinari monasteri, si possono leggere le tracce di una memoria culturale ben più ampia di quanto le narrazioni di archeologi, storici, glottologi, linguisti riferiscono. Una memoria e un immaginario talora inesplorato, che ci riporta ad esempio al culto di Dioniso e all'introduzione della cultura della vite e del vino, alle storie di Europa e di Asia, e in particolare del figlio di Asia Prometeo, incatenato da Zeus proprio tra le rocce del Caucaso, come punizione al furto del fuoco, un furto da cui nasceva l'umanità. Prometeo, che rappresenta il mito della tecnica, ed è la narrazione forse più incisiva nella cultura europea dell'Ottocento. Prometeo salutato da Goethe e poi da Marx come l'alfiere della ribellione dell'uomo al dominio e al controllo della religione, come il campione del controllo della natura attraverso la tecnologia, il cui simbolo è appunto il fuoco, l'eroe del progresso della scienza su cui si fonda l'essere uomo. Prometeo è l'archetipo della creazione tecnologica, dal Frankenstein di Mary Shelley ai robot della fantascienza fino alle sfide inquietanti dell'intelligenza artificiale. Il nome di Prometeo e la sua biografia mitica sintetizzano quindi tecnica, tecnologia, il progresso e anche le magnifiche sorti progressive nella critica di Leopardi, che ha dedicato a questo titano una delle sue operette morali. L'uomo creatore è la creazione dell'uomo, il lavoro, la monogamia, la famiglia, la ribellione e l'affrancamento dal divino, la liberazione dalla natura e dai suoi fenomeni che diventano oggetto di conoscenza e, nel complesso, il superamento della condizione primitiva. E Prometeo è figlio di Asia. Come dire, Prometeo è forse l'eroe della tradizione occidentale, così come questa si va a formare nell'Ottocento. È figlia di Asia e non di Europa. E il suo dono all'umanità è il fuoco, che consente di uscire dalla preistoria, dal nomadismo, è punito da Zeus con questa singolare e simbolica collocazione, e con questa punizione viene incatenato alle alte ed erte rocce di una regione non meglio precisata a nord e oriente rispetto alla Grecia, ma che probabilmente è appunto la regione caucasica. È sicuramente uno dei molti luoghi di quel vasto altopiano in cui ancora oggi è compreso il territorio armeno. Prometeo, attraverso la madre Asia, è un punto di contatto inesplorato, è un frammento di memoria culturale dimenticata e della continuità dell'Armenia tra i due continenti che le stanno intorno, Europa e Asia. Perché la memoria culturale è flebile e si disperde. Gli oggetti conservati nei musei, che sono etimologicamente la casa delle muse, le figlie di memoria, e gli edifici diventati monumenti, in lingua latina monumento significa ricordo, possono testimoniare e preservare questa memoria attraverso la loro fisicità e materialità, che come tale può essere custodita, preservata, tutelata, e infine di nuovo raccontata, perché solo attraverso il racconto e le narrazioni il patrimonio culturale prende vita ed entra a far parte del presente. I beni culturali sono perennemente a rischio, non solo il degrado e le catastrofi ambientali antropiche, non solo le guerre. Prima ancora e più forte è il potere della dimenticanza, dell'oblio. Quanti in Europa e in Asia oggi conoscono le antiche storie delle due ragazze che portano questi nomi? E non conoscendo queste storie, come poter riconoscere la comune e universale identità culturale di armeni, italiani, francesi, siriani, europei? Nei tempi di Brexit e di incomprensione di fronte a presunte identità artificiali fatte dalla moneta o dalle leggi o dei presunti confini, c'è un'identità ancora più forte che permane come una brace sottile che sfida la dimenticanza, ed è il comune universale patrimonio culturale, la comune discendenza da quegli stessi nomadi pastori che, seguendo un capo clan, il pater in greco e latino, il Hair in antico armeno, il Peter nell'antico indiano, il Fader nell'antico tedesco, questi capi dei clan hanno mantenute vive per millenni tradizioni, leggende, usanze, costumi, pratiche, e hanno venerato gli stessi dei, per cui vi è ancora una radice comune proprio tra greco e armeno, la radice Zes, che dà la forma armena Dik, gli dei, e Zes in greco, da cui appunto Theos. Queste tradizioni sono riportate da una generazione all'altra anche attraverso oggetti preziosi che ogni pater, ogni capoclan è tenuto a custodire e affidare al proprio successore, appunto il patrimonio. E così anche per noi. La tutela è anche e soprattutto questo. Non limitiamoci a tutelare e a restaurare i nostri monumenti, ma interroghiamoci su cosa hanno significato e continuano a significare da una generazione all'altra. Interroghiamoci sul loro infinito potenziale semantico, spesso veicolato, trasmesso da dati immateriali e per questo più difficili da custodire, da preservare e da valorizzare. Dai tempi in cui Europa e Asia erano più vicine tra loro di quanto si ritenga oggi, e l'Armenia tra loro come il punto millenario di irradiazione di una comune cultura indoeuropea. Grazie dell'attenzione e tolgo la mia condivisione dello schermo.
Thank you, Alessandro. I was switching to Italian because I was listening to Italian. So, yes, thank you, Alessandro. I'm glad that people that doesn't speak and doesn't understand Italian was not able to follow your presentation.